I, Hermione, travel through time to Marvel to be the savior. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Hogwarts. Hermione is more terrifying than the killing curse. In the Hogwarts classroom, Hermione's mood gradually calmed down. After all, she was a fourth-year student at Hogwarts. Familiarity was the most fundamental reason why she could remain calm. In order to maintain his teaching rhythm, Mad-Eye Moody ignored Hermione, who was a little surprised. Of course, Hermione did not continue to cause trouble for herself. The class was back in the hands of Mad-Eye Moody. Longbottom did not dare to look directly at Mad-Eye Moody. He hesitated and finally said one. There is also a spell called the Cruciatus Curse. Correct. Very correct. This curse is very dangerous. It is a spell used to torture people. Mad-Eye Moody seemed very happy. He knew that Longbottom knew this devilish curse. Now that he answered according to his expectations, it naturally showed that Mad-Eye Moody's plan was perfect. He took out his wand again, pointed it at the spider that had just been hit by the Imperious Curse, and said it mercilessly. Crucia. The spider that was hit by the Cruciatus Curse began to scream in pain, and the spider's screams were very piercing. It makes people feel very uncomfortable, especially Longbottom. His parents were driven crazy by this vicious spell. Longbottom is in pain. This is his nightmare. But most of the classmates don't know. They think Longbottom is in pain just because he is timid. There are so many people who suffer. Longbottom's suffering is nothing at all. Hermione certainly doesn't care, but the system popped up. Option 1. Help Longbottom. Accuse Mad-Eye Moody of doing something wrong. He shouldn't torture his classmates' painful past for fun. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Take out the wand. Cast magic fire. Let Mad-Eye Moody be burned to charcoal on the spot. Complete the task to reward exclusive attribute, flame, +1. Option 3. Use a torture spell more terrible than the Cruciatus Curse. Tell Mad-Eye Moody, compared to magic, I know more than you. Complete the task to reward, high profile, +1. These three options are cruel enough. Either accuse Mad-Eye Moody, kill Mad-Eye Moody, or teach him a lesson. In public, Miss Hermione is used to keeping a low profile. She should leave the high-profile things to the Marvel world. Hermione made her choice and suddenly stood up. She accused, "Stop it. Don't you see how uncomfortable Neville is? Stop it." The whole class seemed to have never expected that the most beautiful goddess in the school would stand up for Longbottom. In the original play, Miss Hermione liked to show herself, so everyone was used to seeing Hermione stand up in the original play. But here, everyone was a little surprised. Usually, Miss Hermione is still very low-key. Moody had just arrived and didn't know Miss Hermione very well, but since a student had spoken up, he, as a teacher, certainly couldn't continue to act on his own. So he really stopped. The more he endured, the angrier he thought about it, and the more he took a step back, the more he thought about it. After all, he was the new professor of defense against the dark arts. How could he let a witch student stop at will? So, Mad-Eye Moody put the spider directly on Hermione's desk. He seemed to want to show Miss Hermione a little power. You say the last unforgivable curse, Ms. Granger. Mad-Eye Moody spoke. In the original series, Hermione shook her head. She seemed to understand Mad-Eye Moody's crazy personality and she was unwilling to be Mad-Eye Moody's accomplice. Hermione's performance in the original series was also very painful. However, Hermione here behaved very calmly. If she hadn't gone to the Marvel world to become a god, perhaps she might still act and show her fragility as a girl. But here, there is no system prompt, and she is too lazy to pretend. In a cold and indifferent tone, he said, "The last unforgivable curse is called the Killing Curse." Mad-Eye Moody was stunned. At that moment, Mad-Eye Moody looked at Miss Hermione's eyes that were so beautiful that they were almost unreal. How could there be such beautiful and moving pupils in the world? but the indifference and murderous intent hidden deep in these eyes made Mad-Eye Moody feel terrified. Mad-Eye Moody rarely felt timid because of other people's eyes. Normally, it was others who dared not look directly into his eyes. But now, Mad-Eye Moody actually had a fear like a mouse seeing a cat, as if it came from the blood suppression deep in his soul. This beautiful witch in front of me, she is the most terrifying demon. This thought only lasted for a moment, but Mad-Eye Moody did not dare to think about it further, because he felt that it was wrong to have such an idea in his mind. How could it be possible? Avada Kedavra. Mad-Eye Moody could only vent his anger on the spider. He had a fierce face. After reciting the terrifying spell, the wand in his hand emitted the power of death and directly killed the poor spider. It was a terrifying green light. This is a killing curse. No living creature can escape. Mad-Eye Moody no longer looked at Miss Hermione. His target was Harry Potter, not Miss Granger the witch. He continued to say pointedly, "But there is one person who miraculously survived, and he is here." Mad-Eye Moody walked in front of Harry, and he did not continue to say the rest of the words, but the answer was obvious. Mad-Eye Moody came to teach, obviously well prepared for the lesson, and he knew all the students in the class. However, when he looked at Ms. Hermione just now, there was a moment when Mad-Eye Moody found that he did not know this beautiful witch at all. Mad-Eye Moody turned around, took out the thing that looked like a wine jug, opened it, and poured it into his mouth. This unique class was finally coming to an end. In the first defense against the dark arts class of the 4th grade, the students were discussing the horror of the unforgivable curses and how powerful they were. After class, the students began to go down the stairs one after another. It was a spiral staircase. There was an ancient mural glass on the side of the road. It seemed to be raining outside the window again. If you get closer, you can see water drops sliding down the glass outside the window. This new teacher is great. Although he's always crazy, his teaching is cool. I like it. The students were discussing and communicating. Some were afraid of the new professor, Mad-Eye Moody, and some liked him. No one can be 100% likable, and no one can be 100% hated. Even Voldemort has many fanatical fans. The atrocities of the Death Eaters have never stopped. Harry and Ron were waiting for Hermione. In the original drama, they certainly wouldn't be around Hermione at this time. But it's different here. Hermione here has a charm that other witches don't have, and her reaction today is very special, which makes Harry and Ron a little worried. Hermione, your performance just now is a little beyond our expectations. Ron was thinking about how to express his worries. After Hermione traveled through Marvel, her mentality will definitely change. It is almost impossible for people not to be affected after experiencing some things. Are you talking about Longbottom? Or about me saying the last unforgivable curse? Hermione asked back. Harry said, and the fact that you've been missing for a few days. With Harry's reminder, Ron started to talk more. Hermione, you've been really strange recently. You've changed a lot. If you have any difficulties, you can tell us. Chapter 302, The Advancement of Magic requires Miss Hermione Granger. After Hermione traveled through Marvel, she acted so arrogant that it was difficult for her to deliberately pretend to be low-key when she returned to Hogwarts. She could live a quiet life like before, because this was her character as a lady, but she might not be able to act low-key for the sake of being low-key. So in class, Mad-Eye Moody felt a chill on his back because he saw the indifference in Hermione's eyes. The gap between the two was too big, and it was understandable that Mad-Eye Moody would feel inexplicably afraid. The more you know, the easier it is to be afraid. Harry and Ron had not seen the horror of Hermione yet. They just felt that Hermione had changed, and the change was so great. Hermione didn't want to lie, and of course she wouldn't tell everything. She explained, "This matter is difficult to explain to you. I can only say that I will try my best to stay the same as before." When Ron wanted to ask something, Vice Principal Professor McGonagall came. Hermione is a witch trained by Professor McGonagall. Otherwise, Professor McGonagall would not have given Hermione such a precious time converter last year. The purpose was to give her more time to study. Hermione did not disappoint Professor McGonagall's expectations. Even though Hermione was very low-key and controlled her test scores, she was still a top student. If she did not control herself, the magic and various knowledge and skills that Hermione currently mastered might have surpassed Professor McGonagall and Headmaster Dumbledore. Now Hermione can only spend time learning the most advanced and profound magic. In addition to the banned books in Hogwarts, there are also intermediate magic books rewarded by the system. We'll talk next time. Hermione followed Professor McGonagall and left. Ron looked at Hermione's beautiful back and was very worried. Harry, how do you think Hermione will explain to Professor McGonagall? The days when Hermione disappeared were the last time she traveled through Marvel. During that time, Iron Man was making the first generation of steel armor in the cave, and Hermione helped by the way. With Hermione's help, Tony Stark was able to successfully make it in less than half a month. Back at Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall would come to find her, which was also within Hermione's expectations, and Hermione happened to have a bold idea that she wanted to discuss with Professor McGonagall. If she couldn't keep a low profile, then Hermione would no longer hide it. She would tell Professor McGonagall how terrifying her magical knowledge was. In Professor McGonagall's office, the atmosphere became serious after the two came in. Professor McGonagall seemed a little angry and blamed, but seeing Hermione's beauty that made people unable to take their eyes off her, and her unique temperament that everyone loved, it was difficult for people to vent their anger on her. Hermione, a very friendly name. You disappeared for so many days. Don't you have anything to explain to me? Because Hermione usually behaved very reliably, there was no panic, otherwise the whole Hogwarts would think that Hermione was dead. The kind of dead body that could not be found. Sure enough, Miss Hermione came back safely. Professor McGonagall went to find Hermione as soon as possible, but Headmaster Dumbledore was still busy with the Triwizard Tournament and had no time to take care of her. Hermione coughed. She cleverly avoided the question, and asked, Professor McGonagall, how much do you know about time magic? Professor McGonagall was about to get angry, but Hermione took out her diary in preparation. That's right. Miss Hermione is such a cautious person, she can't be unprepared. Since you gave me the time converter last year, Professor McGonagall, I have become particularly fascinated by time magic. Look, Professor, these are all the notes and conjectures I made last year. Professor McGonagall was surprised. Although she knew that Ms. Hermione was a rare genius wizard in a century, Hermione was too low-key before. She rarely showed her talent, but just studied silently and absorbed more knowledge silently. Now she can finally break through the level of students and talk to Professor McGonagall as an equal professor. Just a few glances. Hermione's diary is shocking. Many magic theories break through the conventional magic rules and restrictions, which are even more forbidden than forbidden magic. Miss Granger, you are too bold. Hermione stretched out her hands and patted Professor McGonagall's shoulders. At this moment, she was no longer the little girl she was a few years ago, both in height and temperament. Hermione stretched out her finger and shook it at Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall, even in the Muggle world, their scientists have never stopped exploring technology and the unknown of the universe. So, they invented trains, airplanes, and even more advanced supercomputers. As magic wizards, how can we always stand still? Professor McGonagall was silent. She knew that what Ms. Hermione said was right. Although she didn't want to bear it, magic was still ahead of the Muggle world in time, space, and transfiguration. However, the technological products of the Muggle world are constantly infiltrating the magic world, such as trains, such as flying cars, and there will definitely be many more in the future. If wizards keep learning the witchcraft of the ancients and stagnate, sooner or later, the technology of the Muggle world will surpass the noble magic in all aspects. Therefore, Professor McGonagall and Headmaster Dumbledore hope to cultivate a wizard like Miss Hermione Granger. With their wisdom and creativity, magic can become more magical and more advanced. Professor McGonagall closed Miss Hermione's notes, took a deep breath, covered up her shock, and returned this crazy diary to Ms. Hermione. I understand Ms. Granger's idea of creating new magic, but, This is too crazy and too risky. Professor McGonagall seemed to have found the answer herself under Hermione's intentional prompt. Your disappearance these days should be due to the study of time magic. Miss Hermione did not deny or admit it. She said to Professor McGonagall seriously, "Professor, a wizard who can create a time converter must be a wizard who is very good at studying time magic. But, I want to surpass him. I want to get more time. Just going back a few hours is far from enough." This is the real purpose of Hermione's desire to meet Professor McGonagall. She wants to improve the time converter so that she can go back to the past for a longer time. In this way, she will not have so many troubles when traveling between Marvel and Hogwarts. No, Miss Granger, you are still just a student. Although you are very smart, this is too dangerous. If you are trapped in the time cage again, I am afraid that when you come out next time, the outside world will have changed completely. Hermione heard Professor McGonagall mention the information that did not appear in the original movie, and she began to ask excitedly, "Professor McGonagall, do you know something? Tell me, only if you help me can I face fewer unknown dangers." Progress cannot be completely smooth. Danger and innovation coexist. Professor McGonagall, you should know that in order to make progress, this wizarding world must have some people to study and contribute. Hermione's words obviously moved Professor McGonagall, and she was also very excited, because if Miss Hermione succeeded, then for the entire wizarding world, this is a great progress in the history of magic. Although there is no doubt that time magic is definitely a forbidden technique, ordinary wizards are not allowed to use it, but this does not prevent the top-level intelligent wizards from studying it. Last year, Professor McGonagall dared to give the time converter to Miss Hermione, and this year, Professor McGonagall dared to continue to help Miss Hermione. Please support the new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 303, Third Update, Iron Man is dead, the setting sun and the solitary wild goose fly together, the autumn water and the sky are the same color. Cautious Hermione did not dare to guarantee that she could prepare everything 100% in advance. But it was always right to think one step ahead. Because she traveled through Marvel to be the savior, she disappeared in Hogwarts for a few days. After she came back, Vice Principal Professor McGonagall would definitely make trouble. It was not perfect to rush to explain or tell a big lie. How to turn trouble into your own use is the high-energy approach. Of course, Miss Hermione could also choose the lowest level approach and tell everything, such as that she was a time traveler, and why she disappeared was because she traveled through the Marvel world to become a god. Again, if all of this was told to Professor McGonagall, her reaction would definitely be more shocked, even unbelievable, because all of this transcended her original understanding of the world. Under Hermione's questioning, Professor McGonagall revealed the secret of time magic that was forbidden to spread. It is rumored that a great wizard wanted to obtain eternal life, just like Nicholas Flamel who studied the Philosopher's Stone. However, his direction was not alchemy and potions, but the more mysterious and mythical time magic. Time magic will disrupt all order in the normal world, so any time magic is forbidden and is not allowed to be spread or studied publicly. But since there is a mature and practical magic item like time converter, there must be many outstanding wizards who have studied it privately. Among them, there is a wizard whose name Professor McGonagall did not reveal. He has developed time magic that can make people close to immortality. He can travel through time at will, but it is very dangerous. When he was in his 30s, he was once stuck in a time cage. When he came out again, more than 100 years had passed in the outside world. His granddaughter had already aged, but he was still in his 30s. It's terrible time magic, but because of his obsession with time magic, the wizard entered the long river of time again, but no one has seen him since then. Some people say that he is dead. Some people say that he has truly achieved immortality and merged with time magic. Also, some people say that he is still imprisoned in the time cage. This time it may be hundreds of years, or even thousands of years. He may never come out again. There is such a thing? Hermione was also amazed. The magic of magic is not only shown in the movies. After Hermione left Professor McGonagall's office, she also obtained a lot of literature on time magic, as well as banned books. As the deputy headmaster, Professor McGonagall certainly couldn't just hand the banned books to Hermione, but told her where they were and asked her to get them herself. As soon as Hermione left Professor McGonagall went to find Headmaster Dumbledore. Dumbledore had just finished his work. Hogwarts is not big, but it is definitely not small. There is a lot of work to do, and this year's Triwizard Tournament, overtime work will become the norm. Headmaster, I just met Ms. Granger. Professor McGonagall went straight to the point without saying much nonsense. The current Headmaster Dumbledore definitely has no time to listen to gossip. Dumbledore also became interested. As the most promising wizard students in Hogwarts, Harry Potter and Miss Hermione Granger are both highly expected. Although the latter is not so legendary, as the great wizards in charge of Hogwarts, they are not stupid and can see it naturally. What caused Ms. Granger to disappear for a few days? Professor McGonagall told Hermione's words. Nonsense. How old is she? How dare she delve into time magic? This is a magical field that even Headmaster Dumbledore has never touched, because time magic is really too complicated. It's just like time converter. If you continue to study it, it will be the realm of God. Even magicians cannot interfere too much, otherwise, the time cage will let mortals know what is taboo. Professor McGonagall used magic to show the diary fragment that Hermione showed her. After reading it, Headmaster Dumbledore fell silent. I still think it's too dangerous. Headmaster Dumbledore is very partial to Harry. Even if he lets Harry go face to face with Voldemort and kill the 1,000-year-old monster in the Chamber of Secrets, he thinks it's okay. But on Miss Hermione's side, Dumbledore doesn't dare to give her too much authority. Professor McGonagall was quite supportive of Hermione. She helped to speak up and said, "It's very dangerous, but if we support her, we can effectively control her. On the contrary, if we let her do whatever she wants, we will never know." You know, Miss Granger is a rare magic genius in Hogwarts for 100 years. When the time-traveling Hermione first came, she might not be as good as the Hermione in the original play, but with the accumulation of years and the accumulation of system plugins, Hermione is now different from the past. Okay. But you must keep an eye on her research. Don't let her get into big trouble. Dumbledore also understood that some things cannot be stopped. In particular, genius and madness are often only a thought away. Hermione's good performance made it not difficult for her to win the support of Professor McGonagall and Headmaster Dumbledore. And she also obtained many research results on time magic from previous wizards. It is said that she is standing on the shoulders of giants. Among them, the great wizard imprisoned in the time cage has the most valuable research. After Hermione learned from him, she did not use his method. Too radical, too unsafe. If Hermione follows his research direction, the biggest possibility is that she will be trapped in the long river of time and can only come out after 100 years. By then, Harry and Ron will be old and dead, and the whole wizarding world will have changed. But his understanding of time is very important. Just like before Hermione, Lin Qingyun traveled through time. A famous scientist once said, "When the speed is faster than the speed of light, people can reverse and go back to the past." Although the technology at that time could not achieve this at all. In the wizarding world, Time Converter is already a fairly mature product. What Hermione needs to do is to perfectly upgrade this product, extend the time from a few hours back to the past to a few days or even a few months. Hermione worked hard to innovate, and after studying hard, she could only barely improve the Time Converter to go back to the past for nearly 10 hours. If she wanted to add more, it would be very difficult. Just like the upgrade of mobile phone chips from 7nm technology to 5nm technology, all the design and construction have to be done again. It is even more difficult to improve from 5nm to 3nm, and even the chip materials have to be replaced. Hermione has accumulated knowledge for many years, and with the addition of system plugins, it is already quite difficult to extend it to 10 hours. This day, Hermione was still researching, and she suddenly received a death notice video. It was Tony's last words left in the computer, and the time showed that he had been dead for 9 hours. Damn. No way. Is the butterfly effect so terrible? How did Iron Man die? After coming out of the cave and being picked up by the soldiers, shouldn't he have risen from then on? It's only been a few days, and he died directly. Miss Hermione was overwhelmed. There was no time to think about the specific situation of Tony's last words. She took the time converter and went directly through. It happened that today was a holiday. As long as she wasted a day and came back, Hermione's disappearance would not be suspected. Damn it. Hermione's real purpose in studying this was to hope that she could control time freely in Marvel and Hogwarts. But Tony Stark was dead, Iron Man was dead, and Hermione could only take the time converter back to save him. Third update, please support. Thank you everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304, fourth update, Iron Man is alive again. The butterfly effect. The setting sun and the solitary wild goose fly together, and the autumn water and the sky are the same color. Hermione traveled to the Marvel world, and looking at the beautiful scenery, such beautiful poems emerged in her mind. However, holding Tony Stark's last words in her hand, now is not the time to appreciate the scenery. In the original movie, Tony Stark also recorded many shots of his last words, but definitely not now. When Hermione Granger which quickly came to the luxurious seaside villa where Tony Stark lived, the system immediately popped up. Option 1. Go to treat Iron Man. It is not time for him to leave the world. Complete the task and reward basic attributes +2. Option 2. Send a wreath to Tony Stark. Send him off before his body turns into ashes, and complete the task to reward a diamond level earn. Option 3. I just come here to dance, shake my head, and I am the most excited in the audience. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, funny, +1. Speechless? Does this system still know funny? At this time, dancing is not only funny, but also a bit stupid. Time waits for no one. The system is so good at timing. Hermione just adjusted the time converter to 10 hours at Hogwarts, and Tony Stark died 9 hours ago. At this moment, Tony Stark's luxurious seaside villa has a very smart butler, and any intruder can be detected. But Miss Hermione Granger puts on the invisibility cloak, plus the shielding magic. She can enter perfectly without being discovered by high technology. In this round, magic wins. Of course, this is Hermione Granger. If it were Harry and Ron, it would naturally not work. Even if Principal Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall came, it would probably be difficult. They have never seen such advanced equipment in the home of Iron Man. Tony Stark, the second generation of Iron Man, and the real Iron Man armor, was built in the laboratory below. Virtual scanning, high-tech equipment, and solutions for the most intelligent machines represent the highest level of steel and technology. Of course, it was not the time for the intruder Hermione to praise Tony's house for its beauty. She was not Cinderella who had never seen the world. She took out the upgraded time converter and started to rotate it, according to the theory that if one goes back to the past, the current time will stop. Hermione traveled through Marvel and was delayed for less than 10 minutes, so the time in Hogwarts was also about 10 minutes. When Hermione used the time converter in Marvel, the current time in Marvel stopped. Similarly, the time in Hogwarts was the same. In other words, as long as Hermione saved the dead Tony Stark in the next 10 hours and then traveled back to Hogwarts, then the time in Hogwarts would still only pass 10 minutes. It was perfect. As long as Miss Hermione kept upgrading the time converter, she could perfectly control the time difference between the two worlds. In the Marvel world, Miss Hermione could release human nature and act recklessly, but after keeping a low profile in Hogwarts for so many years, she did not want to change just because she started traveling through Marvel. To be honest, when Harry and Ron said that she had changed, she actually felt bad. So, she had to adjust the balance of the two worlds as much as possible. The feeling of using the time converter is inconsistent with the feeling of traveling through the time and space wormhole. Fortunately, except for some fluctuations in the soul, there is no great discomfort. Just like if you are in good health, you will not get carsick when riding in a car. If you are in poor health and get carsick, it will be uncomfortable. Time quickly went back to 10 hours ago. Miss Hermione was still in Tony Stark's villa. She was wearing an invisible cloak. At this time, Tony Stark was still alive. Hermione was not in a hurry to show up immediately. She was very curious about how Tony Stark died. Although he looked bruised and swollen now, as if he had been beaten, even if Hermione stood in front of Tony Stark in the invisible state, he would not be able to sense it. Tony Stark held an ice pack and touched his bruises. Standing on the side is Tony Stark's secretary Virginia Potts, who is smart, capable, and sexy female assistant Little Pepper. There is no way. The life of rich people is so chic. Ordinary people can't envy it. Tony Stark was a playboy in the first half of his life. He was romantic and suave every night under the moonlight. He was happy. In the second half of his life, he experienced the test of life and death. He turned over a new leaf and became Iron Man, a superhero. He was a winner in life. However, those were all plots in the original play. Since Miss Hermione came through, Tony Stark's life has been a mess. First he lost his legs, and now he has lost his life. It's all because of the butterfly effect. If Miss Hermione didn't appear at all, Tony Stark wouldn't suffer so much. Of course, his life might have lost a lot of fun. Pepper Potts showed concern for Tony Stark and said, "Boss, I think your new weapon research is too dangerous. You should consider asking someone to help you with the experiment." I mean, it turns out that Tony Stark was injured all over when he was testing the Iron Man 2 armor in the laboratory. This is an inevitable process. He was like this in the original movie. Not only did he crash into the wall 360 degrees, but when testing the jet takeoff, he also burned several of his beloved cars. It was very distressing. However, in the original movie, Tony Stark was thick-skinned and tough, and he was fine no matter how he fell. Here, Tony Stark is set as an ordinary person. Although a fall will not cause him to break bones, bruises are inevitable. I understand what you mean. Maybe you don't know that my previous weapons research results have now fallen into the hands of bad people. I don't know who to trust now. So, regarding this Iron Man research, I must come in person. Tony Stark took a sip of the coffee brought by his female assistant Virginia Potts, and then said affectionately, "There are not many people I can trust, only you and." Virginia Potts seemed to hear something. She asked, "Besides me, who else?" Tony Stark laughed. "My patron saint, and God." Virginia Potts laughed. "How could there be a God in this world?" It seems that this danger has caused great trauma to Tony Stark. Tony Stark, who used to only believe that scientific weapons can change everything, now also began to believe in God. Virginia Potts didn't know that the God Tony Stark mentioned was actually Miss Hermione Granger from Hogwarts. The invisible Hermione on the side listened to the conversation between him, her, and her heart was mixed. In fact, before she traveled through time, she had seen the movies and knew that in the original TV series Iron Man, Tony Stark was not that unlucky. It all started from her travel through time. Although Hermione has been helping Tony Stark time and time again, and seems to be a guardian angel. In fact, if Hermione, God, had not appeared, Tony Stark would have had a better outcome. At least, the process of suffering would have been much smoother. The setbacks he is going through now are really too great. In other words, the adult world is too difficult. If it were in the Harry Potter world, the fairy tale world of children, even if there would be a butterfly effect, it would not be so scary. At least Ron and Harry have been fine all the time. Unlike Tony Stark, it's just too miserable. It's terrible. The fourth update, please support. Thank you everyone. Chapter 305, Hammer 80. Hermione obtains Nano Iron Man armor. The brilliant years seemed to be embedded in time. Every time I recalled them, I would be shrouded in the dazzling light. Hermione continued to observe. As long as she didn't come out to disturb him immediately, Tony Stark would die soon. Hermione wanted to find out how he died. After the female assistant Virginia Potts left, Tony Stark continued to study. In fact, Tony Stark's finished Iron Man armor was quite handsome. How about Ms. Hermione also let Tony make a set for him? As his God, he would definitely not refuse this request. Let's talk about it after saving him. Tony Stark began to enter the interior of the new generation of Iron Man fighter. Tony was a Loki person, so he painted the Iron Man armor with wine red paint, which looked extremely coquettish. Then he stepped on the throttle and flew directly into the sky. A dazzling light slid across the night sky. Tony Stark was very excited. His ideal Iron Man armor was finally developed successfully. It was light, flexible and fully functional. Hermione rode on her flying broom and immediately chased after him. Finally, the mystery was solved, and Hermione finally knew how Tony Stark died. It turned out that his mentality was the same as in the original movie. When he was halfway through the flight, he thought he could break through the sky, but the steel began to freeze, causing him to fall directly from the sky. Although this was an accident, it was easily resolved in the original movie. But here, Tony Stark's life was directly taken. He died for this reason. Miss Hermione was also speechless. She thought that Thanos invaded the Earth in advance, or Hydra came to assassinate him. After all this time, it turned out that Tony Stark killed himself. You are really a talent. Speechless? But Miss Hermione still had to save this person. Just when Tony Stark began to despair and left a last word, the goddess Hermione appeared directly, and the first thing she did was to break the ice on Tony Stark's steel armor. At the critical moment, the system option pop-up window appeared again. Option 1, small hammer 40, big hammer 80. Use the big hammer to help Tony Stark remove the ice. Complete the task and reward one set of nano Iron Man armor. Option 2, watch Tony Stark die, and put a white flower on his body. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Indifference, +1. Option 3, use the magic forgetfulness spell to make Tony Stark forget everything. From then on there is no longer Iron Man, only ordinary playboy Tony Stark. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Magic, +1. Since I am here to be the savior, how can I stand idly by? Besides, the system is going to reward good things again. Miss Hermione will certainly not give up, and she will work hard to get it. The usual rewards are ear picks, cotton swabs, toilet paper, nail clippers, etc. Those tasks have been completed. Now that they are going to reward Nano Iron Man armor, Hermione will of course get it. So in order to complete the task, she took out the sledgehammer used for house decoration. By the way, this sledgehammer was also a system reward. At first, Hermione thought it was the Hashin hammer and Leo continent. It turned out to be a sledgehammer used for house decoration. One hammer 80. Hermione used her hometown dialect and hammered Tony Stark's frozen steel armor with a decoration hammer. Anyway, Tony Stark couldn't understand it. Before Tony Stark was about to fall to his death, Miss Hermione used the decoration hammer to successfully break the ice, allowing Tony Stark's second-generation Iron Man armor to finally be reborn. Hermione also cast a levitation spell, allowing Tony Stark to float instantly even if he fell to the ground. Miss Hermione has always been so meticulous in doing things. Make sure everything is foolproof. Congratulations on completing the Option 1 task, and reward one set of Nano Iron Man armor. Hermione was in a good mood. It has been a long time since she felt happy about getting equipment. It can be traced back to the first time he got the ominous sign. After Tony Stark was successfully rescued, he looked at the shining god in front of him in surprise. She was so beautiful, more beautiful than the angels descending from heaven. The cold moon behind her was round and bright. Thank you for saving me again. I feel like I have died once. Because Hermione used the time converter to go back to the past, Tony Stark naturally remembered that he had died once. Hermione reminded, don't be so reckless next time. Your protagonist halo cannot always guarantee that you will not die. Tony Stark smiled bitterly. I am really unlucky. If it weren't for the existence of God, I don't know how many times I have died. Hermione wanted to answer, if it weren't for me, you might not have so many twists and turns. You died in a test flight accident. What's the difference between you and ordinary muggles? Where is your protagonist halo? Go back, improve your Iron Man equipment, be careful about everything, I can't just appear at all times to save you. If it weren't for the time converter that could go back to the past and extend the time, maybe Iron Man would really have to be played by someone else." Tony Stark survived again. Of course he had to sigh at the preciousness of life. After returning, he just soaked in the laboratory. He invited Goddess Hermione to visit, but Hermione was afraid that her appearance would bring unpredictable butterfly effect to Tony Stark. According to Hermione's speculation, Tony Stark does have the protagonist's halo, but his halo is obviously not as strong as Hermione's. Based on the theory that the stronger, Hermione's halo will eat away at Tony Stark's protagonist's halo, so Tony Stark will encounter many unexpected hardships that should not have appeared in the protagonist. Of course, Hermione is not all for Tony Stark's consideration. She still has her own things to do. In the past, it was 10% of the body's good luck that passively picked up good things. Now, Hermione wanted to pick up something and travel back. It wasn't that traveling through Marvel made her uncomfortable, but she didn't want to destroy the balance she had built up at Hogwarts. At the same time, Hermione had just obtained the Nano Iron Man armor, and she wanted to wear it to see how it felt. Miss Hermione was not as careless as Tony Stark, who demonstrated it over the city. Hitting flowers and plants was secondary. The main thing was to be photographed by others. Miss Hermione was used to keeping a low profile. She came to the primeval forest, which was uninhabited for 100 miles, very suitable for Hermione's next experiment. Tony Stark owed a fee for the protagonist's halo, which led to the crash of the plane and the death of everyone. Miss Hermione must of course make all protective preparations in advance. Although the good things rewarded by the system are generally more reliable, it is better to be cautious than to be safe. Hermione put on the ominous sign and the witch's cloak, and stacked a few life-saving magic, as well as life-saving potions, etc. Then she took out the Nano Iron Man armor. Nano sounds so high-end, Hermione thought. After all, this Iron Man armor is the size of a suitcase. However, the system technology really opened Miss Hermione's eyes. The Nano Iron Man armor, rewarded by the system, was only the size of a fingernail. To put it bluntly, it was just a red button. The size of a button. Hermione pressed it with great expectation, and successfully activated the Nano Iron Man armor. Chapter 306 May you be warm in the 3 winters and not cold in the spring. Harry's Parchment. May you be warm in the winter and not cold in the spring. May you have a light when it is dark and an umbrella when it rains. May you not worry about long johns in the autumn and cotton-padded jacket in the winter. May you have a good companion on the road. Under the moonlight, a wine-red Nano Iron Man armor that is more showy than Tony Stark, starts directly from the buttons and covers the body quickly and densely. Ultra-thin and ultra-light. Taking out a large mirror, Hermione blushed slightly after watching herself wearing the Nano Iron Man armor. Because Miss Hermione has a great figure, this armor almost perfectly presents Hermione's good figure that even God's envy. Usually Hermione wears a loose Hogwarts school uniform, which does not look obvious. But this Nano Iron Man armor covers the body closely, which is absolutely amazing. Fortunately, there are no outsiders here, so Hermione began to experiment with the power of this Nano Iron Man armor. Speed up, strength up, defense up. It is also equipped with laser cannons, can fly, is rainproof, moisture-proof, and can resist ice formation in outer space. It has an oxygen system inside, and can survive for a long time in a vacuum without oxygen. It is very advanced and perfect. But Miss Hermione has a very good figure, and she doesn't like to be admired by stinky men. It is better to wear another layer of clothes on the Nano Iron Man armor. Although it feels a bit redundant, the nano steel armor is too thin and covers the body closely. Miss Hermione is not a prostitute. She thinks that if she uses the Nano Iron Man armor in the future, it is necessary to wear clothes outside, even ordinary clothes. Miss Hermione has too many skills now. Unless it is an extremely special situation, this Nano Iron Man armor should not be used. After 2 hours of testing, Hermione put away the Nano Iron Man armor. The nano armor returned to the red button, and it looked no different from a button. Hermione sighed that if this technology could be seen by Iron Man Tony Stark, His Iron Man research would definitely be ahead of the times again, but Hermione would not do that. First of all, the nano-Iron Man armor was hers, and she did not need to share it. Secondly, Marvel was a fairy tale for adults, and the butterfly effect was even more obvious. Hermione only helped Tony Stark a few times, and he began to encounter all kinds of unpredictable results. If Hermione interfered with his research on the Iron Man armor again, it would definitely backfire. Hermione looked at the time. There were only 3 hours left, and the time converter was about to expire. She should think about how to go back. The most satisfying thing in the world should be what you think of. Hermione thought about how to go back, because in another 3 hours, the time converter would end, and time would flow normally. Similarly, Miss Hermione would disappear again at Hogwarts. She didn't want this. This would make her very uncomfortable. Just like, in the game, she could fight 5 people alone, all kinds of MVPs, all kinds of super gods, and all kinds of chicken. But when she returned to reality, she found that she still had to worry about the next month's water and electricity bills, rent, eating, taking the subway and other buses, etc. This is very annoying. Miss Hermione hopes that since she is a god in the Marvel world, everything in the Hogwarts world should be under her control. The system tries its best to satisfy Hermione. Something like snowflakes fell from the sky. Hermione reached out and picked it up. It turned out to be a piece of parchment with the name Harry Potter written on it. It seems that she is going to travel back in time. However, Ms. Hermione, who has a lot of imagination, began to have more innovative and bold ideas. Although she got a nano-Iron Man armor that is more advanced than the current Iron Man, this is not what Ms. Hermione really wants. What she wants is a portkey. It is the broken boot that she touched when watching the Quidditch World Cup in the Wizarding World. Of course, the portkey can be anything. It can be a kettle or a towel. The premise is that it can instantly teleport the wizard to another place. There are many magics in the Wizarding World, but everyone is very conservative in using them. For example, the time converter. In the original movie, only Hermione Granger used it, and other wizards did not continue to develop it. The same is true for the portkey. This is more worthy of research and development than flu powder. Miss Hermione doesn't want to rely on picking up things to travel back and forth between Marvel and Hogwarts. It may be fresh at the beginning, but it gets annoying after many times. She has to wait for the system to arrange it, which makes Ms. Hermione very unhappy. She doesn't like to wait, and likes the feeling of being in control. It's like waiting for a bus that doesn't know when it will come back. If you are lucky, you won't be late. If you are unlucky, you can't squeeze in at all. But Hermione wants to have her own private car, like a super door key, which can be connected between Marvel and Hogwarts. When she wants to travel, she can travel there anytime and anywhere. No need to wait. No need to sigh about whether she is lucky or not. All travel should be in her own hands. The door key is strictly controlled in the Wizarding World Cup, just like time magic. However, Hermione believes in herself. She will get the door key she wants. Still, with the help of something unexpected, this time it was parchment, Hermione returned to Hogwarts 3 hours ahead of schedule. It was amazing that Hermione not only did not delay 1 minute at Hogwarts, but she also had 2 hours and 50 minutes more. It was not a race against time, so Hermione directly turned off the time converter and let time return to normal. Hermione changed her clothes, took a shower, and comfortably began to continue her ordinary but not simple life as a wizard student. This time she did not disappear, and others would not know that Miss Hermione had actually left this world and went to another world. It was raining outside the window, and most of the wizard students ran to Hogwarts School in the rain. Perhaps the special effects of filming movies are expensive, and ordinary wizard students in movies rarely use magic in their lives. Miss Hermione was the same before, but she wanted to make some changes now. Perhaps traveling back and forth between the two worlds was too much trouble, and she hoped that her life would be smoother. She had no way to stop it from raining, so she cast a small magic spell to condense an invisible umbrella above her head. When water drops fell on her head, They were bounced away or pulled down along the umbrella blades like a real umbrella. Miss Hermione Granger was already breathtakingly beautiful in Hogwarts, and now a perfect little magic made her stand out more elegantly in the crowd. Hermione, Harry and Ron both ran over. Like ordinary wizards, they lowered their heads, bent over, and used their large school uniforms to block the rain. Looking very embarrassed, Hermione smiled without saying a word, took out her wand and waved it gently, and an invisible umbrella appeared above Harry and Ron's heads. Awesome, Hermione, you are amazing. Inside the house, in the auditorium, everyone gathered here to watch the excitement. In the middle, there was a circle of light, which was very similar to the circle that Sun Wukong drew for Tang Monk and his disciples with the golden hoop in Journey to the West. In the circle, there was a goblet of fire that was constantly burning with blue flames, full of magical colors. This goblet of fire was very classy. Everyone watched the excitement, just to see who would throw the parchment with their own name written on it into the goblet of fire. As long as the wizard was over 17 years old, it was possible. I am looking forward to supporting my new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 307. I have no grudge against you. Ron's brother is a fool. There are still many wizard students who have nothing to do, and many students who like to watch the fun. Everyone is with friends or girlfriends who are familiar with each other. Miss Hermione has often been with Ron and Harry for many years because of the mission. Malfoy didn't have much appearances today, and he was not seen around. This year's Hogwarts Triwizard Tournament obviously has more roles to play, and the director can't use Malfoy for the time being. Cedric, come on, put it in. This is a more famous senior wizard student in Hogwarts. The two sides had met several times when they watched the Quidditch World Cup last time. Cedric was with his senior playmates. When he passed by Harry and Ron, he nodded slightly and didn't say hello directly. Miss Hermione was dressed in an elegant witch costume, holding a magic book in her hand. She looked both tasteful and very pleasing to the eye. Cedric would not go to chat with her, so as not to be ridiculed by his classmates. It was already known to everyone that Hermione was the goddess of Hogwarts. A rich second-generation man like Malfoy, who was handsome and rich, had been chasing her for several years but failed. Ordinary male wizards naturally did not dare to take the initiative. Just watch from afar. Goddesses are for worship. If Hermione was too casual and anyone could flirt with her, then she would not be a goddess wizard, but a witch who was more casual in feelings than ordinary girls. Eternal glory, great, Harry said to Ron enviously as he watched Cedric and his friends walk into the circle. Harry and Ron were not old enough, so they naturally could not participate. We have to wait another 3 years before we have a chance to be selected. Ron sighed, and now he could only be a spectator. For Hermione, being a spectator was good. At this time, Ron's funny twin brothers came out. Great, guys, we finally succeeded. Freshly baked this morning. The two showed off the potions in their hands. This was a good idea they had thought of. Perhaps the twins were not particularly interested in the Triwizard Tournament. They were not old enough, but were told that they were not even eligible to register. Ron's twin brother felt very dissatisfied. They wanted to break this rule, which must be very interesting. What these two fools wanted to do had nothing to do with Miss Hermione, but at this time, the system popped up an option task. Option 1. Help Harry Potter and throw the parchment with his name on it into the Goblet of Fire. Complete the task and reward basic attribute +1. Option 2. Tell Ron that the two fools that their tricks will not work at all, and complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, Wisdom, +1. Option 3. Nothing is better than dancing. Dance on the spot, and require the head down and feet up to kick at least 3 times. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, Dance, +1. There is always a funny option. Hermione seriously suspects that her system is a funny system in the name of Savior. Help Harry Potter throw the parchment. This option, Hermione actually guessed it a long time ago. After returning from the Marvel world, Hermione used this parchment, on which was written Harry Potter's name. This task prop must be meaningful. Sure enough, a task appeared here, asking Hermione to help Harry Potter throw it into the Goblet of Fire. In fact, even if Hermione didn't do this, there would naturally be villains to help Harry do it. Even if Miss Hermione had a way, she didn't need to do it. Besides, she is not Ron's twin brother who likes to show off. People like to keep a low profile, okay? There are so many people here, she doesn't want to expose her strength, so choose the middle one. It's strange that it can work, Hermione suddenly interrupted, quite abruptly. Although Ron's twin brothers also knew that Goddess Hermione was beautiful, they were not licking dogs. Hearing Hermione's slight sarcasm, they were not convinced and asked, "Really? How do you know it can't work?" Hermione explained directly, "Have you seen this? This is the age limit, drawn by Dumbledore himself." How about it? The twins were still not convinced. A genius like Dumbledore would not be fooled by such a stupid trick as the aging potion. Hermione seemed to know everything. The twins were silly and very confident. They laughed and said, "But the beauty of it is that the more stupid it is, the more interesting it is." Hermione pretended to be speechless, as if she had no grudges against you. "So why did you have to be a fool?" Under the gaze of everyone, the twins picked up their potion one after another, and the two of them even had the same posture of drinking wine from each other's cups. One gulp, one gulp. The surrounding wizard classmates were all watching, and everyone was wearing school uniforms, looking forward to seeing whether it would be the same as what the female schoolmaster Hermione said, that it would not work. Or was it like what the twins themselves said, that the more stupid it is, the more interesting it is? In Hermione's eyes, the twins looked like circus clowns, but in the eyes of everyone, they were like magicians on stage, starting their wonderful performance. Harry and Ron did not speak, but watched with expectation. After drinking the aging potion, the twins jumped directly into the light circle. It actually worked. It looks like the female academic master Hermione is going to be slapped in the face. All the students in the audience applauded for the twins' wisdom. "Oh, great. You are really amazing." The twins smiled back with a silly look of being a gangster. "Thank you, thank you." As a result, the perfect interaction between the stage and the audience made the audience applaud even more enthusiastically. Although Miss Hermione Granger is the goddess in the minds of most male wizard students, the goddess is also a human being, and it is inevitable that there will be errors in estimation and misjudgment. And this time, the twins of Ron's brother, the retarded duo, clearly won. "Are you ready?" "Good." "Ready." The two greeted each other, and then together put the parchment with their names on it into the 1-meter-high goblet of fire. The flames illuminated the glory on their faces. The two clapped their hands happily. The surrounding students cheered together. "Oh my God, Fred and George actually succeeded. They are indeed the most famous funny duo in Hogwarts. Should I try a tube of aging potion?" Everyone's praise had just begun when something strange happened. The goblet of fire seemed to have just eaten something dirty, and immediately began to vomit violently. Then, a terrifying blue flame, blazing temperature, and the terrifying flames rushed straight to the ceiling. The students were naturally frightened and stepped back subconsciously. At this time, the two parchments with the names of Fred Weasley and George Weasley written on them were directly spit out in the flames of the goblet of fire. Obviously, the two people's attempt to use the aging potion to deceive the world and get away with it failed. Not only that, the punishment brought by the goblet of fire was also very terrifying. Two balls of blue flames directly bounced the twins out of the circle. The students around were all stunned. They were worried that the twins would be burned to death, but fortunately the flames were like magic energy, and did not burn their clothes. This special magical energy instantly turned the twins into old men with white hair, white beards, and white eyebrows. It was magic that changed them. Only their hair turned white, but their bodies and appearances did not change, and their muscles and skin did not loosen. The students who were watching the fun all laughed. Only then did they understand that the goddess is the goddess. If Hermione said they couldn't do it, they really couldn't do it. At Hogwarts, Miss Hermione's beauty is unmatched, and her wisdom is the same among student wizards. Chapter 308, Romance Until Death. Miss Hermione's magnificent chapter. People who want to be fools cannot be stopped. Fred Weasley and George Weasley are undoubtedly the best clowns in the audience. They think that their cleverness can defeat the wisdom of the legendary wizard Dumbledore. In order to break the deadlock, The two are unwilling to admit their failure, so they can only blame each other. You said it was useful. It's all your fault. You said it. It's your fault. The two accused each other and fought together, looking like two elementary school students who have not grown up. No wonder the Triwizard Tournament requires contestants to be over 17 years old. If they are not old enough, there will be too many retarded brothers like this. Want to fight with me? I'm going to tear off your ears. We are old things. Take it. Come on. The people who were watching the excitement just now did not change, but the show performed by the twins changed. The students who were watching the excitement still felt that it was very lively. Not only did no one go up to persuade them to fight, but they fanned the flames. Hit him, hit him, hit him, tear off his pants, bend his toe. What a bunch of immature boys. There is a saying that goes, sometimes a man's happiness is that simple. A man is still a teenager until he dies. It means that men always have a childish side, but if they show this side well, they are cute little milk dogs in the eyes of girls, which is a plus point. If they don't show it well, they will look very immature, even mentally retarded. Hermione in the original movie felt speechless and couldn't understand this group of idiots, so she chose to leave the silly group and read alone. Hermione here is okay. She has a god's perspective most of the time. In her eyes, it is normal for boys to be silly. After all, silly is more fun. We are old, but you look older. The twins performed even harder with the encouragement of their classmates. Both of them are very capable of driving the atmosphere. At this time, in another magic school, Durmstrang School of Magic, the male wizards here are like muscular fitness coaches. They came together, and they were very imposing just by walking. It was like a group of weak wizards, and a group of strong tanks came in, which was very conflicting. Fortunately, everyone was well educated and gentlemanly, and there was no real conflict over any small things. The leader of Durmstrang School of Magic was Krum, a very famous star in the Quidditch World Cup and Ron's idol in the original play. Krum's figure was really strong and his appearance was pretty good, which was the dish of some women. But no matter what kind of man he was not Miss Hermione's dish. Oh my god, Krum. Ron was excited again. Krum walked straight into the circle, came to the goblet of fire, and threw down the parchment with his name on it in a clean and chic manner, and then left in a chic manner. Unlike the twins who were like clowns just now. The gap between people is still quite large. Hermione in the original play seemed to be fascinated by this kind of manly male wizard. After all, there were almost no male wizards who felt so safe around her. Krum also saw the unique charm of Miss Hermione at first sight. In Krum's opinion, the witch Hermione is very different. In the original play, Krum was able to see clearly and fell in love with Miss Hermione Granger at first sight. Here, Miss Hermione is more charming and beautiful. Even if she is covered with several, low-key, halos around her body, Krum can still fall in love at first sight. This is fate, this is destiny, and it is also a romance that lasts until death. In the original play movie, the dance between Krum and Miss Hermione is still very interesting, although most male audiences do not have any sense of substitution. Here, Hermione and Krum looked at each other, and she felt nothing. Miss Hermione felt that she was destined to be single in this life, because she is too outstanding and her vision is too high. Any man in front of her is unattractive. Gold diggers will take a fancy to the money of old babies, and having money is the charm of old men. Girls who are not short of money and full of personality will like freedom and men who can bring her freshness. This is a handsome man, and this is also charm. And most ordinary girls will like handsome guys, handsome boys, like Malfoy, who is also very attractive in his highlight moments. Of course, loyalty, ambition, romance, security, and gentleness are also the charms of most ordinary boys. But Miss Hermione Granger has all of these. So she really thinks that Krum is nothing special, and doesn't know why Hermione in the original play likes him. Fame, muscular man, mature gentleman. Ron here is not so stupid. Although Krum is still his idol, between male idols and goddesses, Ron will certainly choose the latter without hesitation. Just now, Krum came and left in a chic manner, and Ron admired him very much. Just like in the Quidditch World Cup, Crumb is also a mythical existence. This can be referred to the crazy worship of fanatical fans for the stars. However, here, Ron's IQ is better than his twin brother. When he saw that Crumb seemed to look at his goddess Miss Hermione a few more times, he immediately felt uncomfortable. Of course, he couldn't blame Miss Hermione for being so beautiful. Why did she go to attract bees and butterflies? He could only turn around and complain to Harry beside him. Why did Crumb look at Hermione like that just now? Harry didn't care much. Ron suddenly mentioned it, and he thought back. It seemed true. Quidditch star like Crumb must have no shortage of girls around him. But ordinary girls can no longer satisfy Crumb's taste. Only a peerless beauty like Miss Hermione Granger can match her. Harry said without surprise. Hermione is so beautiful, it's normal for Crumb to look at her a few more times. Ron was very dissatisfied. Harry, why can you say it so easily? It's different. I can feel that Crumb seems to have a more blatant purpose for Hermione. Harry asked back. Ron, what are you worried about? You have been with Hermione for so long, don't you know what kind of person she is? Harry looked at Hermione's exquisite and perfect profile. From this angle, he could even see her long eyelashes, big, clear eyes, and white and clean skin. Of course, myopia definitely can't see it. She is a goddess, and ordinary men can't get her at all. Apostrophe at Hogwarts. The person who knows Hermione best is Harry Potter from beginning to end. I mean the Harry Potter here, not the silly one in the original show. After today's story, Miss Hermione's night is also very exciting. Although she is still a student at Hogwarts, with the secret help of Professor McGonagall, she also has her own laboratory in the castle. She is more professor than a professor. In her free time, she studies advanced magic. In addition to time magic, after Hermione's imagination was opened, she wanted to learn the equally advanced space magic. Vice Principal Professor McGonagall sometimes felt that her student Miss Hermione Granger was like a lunatic. In the past, Hermione was too low-key, and Professor McGonagall underestimated her accumulation and potential. Now, in order to get more, Hermione exposed a little bit, which directly shocked Professor McGonagall and made him unable to sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. Miss Hermione's gorgeous chapter begins here. With professional knowledge, she successfully developed her own space magic, the Dorky, after a period of time. Please support the new book. Thank you all. Chapter 309, The Strongest Witch in Hogwarts History. The development of the Dorky was not achieved overnight, but there is no doubt that it contains a vast amount of magical knowledge. Similarly, with Miss Hermione's aesthetics, she naturally could not make a Dorky like a broken boot. The Dorky developed by Hermione is really the shape of a key. It can be carried with you. Up to 6 can be made at the same time. They can be teleported to 6 places through the Dorky, and they can all be connected to each other. This is very magical. Usually the Dorky can only be transmitted in a single line, but Hermione added the Dorky to the transmission network principle of the Flute powder. In the original play, Harry Potter was originally teleported directly to Nocturne Alley because he mispronounced the name of Diagon Alley. This shows that as long as the name is pronounced correctly, you can go to the corresponding place through the Flute powder. With her current talent, Hermione successfully developed 6 Dorkies to form a transmission network connected in series. Of course, she can also increase to 9, 12, or even 100, but the premise is that this difficulty is too great. The transmission process will become complicated, and the production will become unusually difficult. So 6 is just right. Hermione first teleported over a short distance to do an experiment. One was placed in a secret place in Hogwarts, another was buried in the dark forest outside the school. Then, Hermione cast a spell and began to teleport. Hermione felt the same as when she used the broken boot key. In a blink of an eye, she was teleported to the dark forest. Great. Hermione took the remaining 4 Dorkies and thought about where to put the next 3. One of them must be kept with her at all times so that she can use it anytime and anywhere. The remaining 5 were placed in different parts of the world. Professor McGonagall secretly helped Ms. Hermione and was very moved when she learned that she had successfully developed the key. As a witch, Professor McGonagall is already very remarkable, but compared to Miss Hermione, she is not even a little bit worse. When Professor McGonagall was Miss Hermione's age, She was probably still obsessed with love. But Miss Hermione is so beautiful, but she is fully committed to magic research, which is incredible. She can create results in both time magic and space magic in the shortest time, and she can be regarded as the strongest witch in history. Professor McGonagall even thought that if Hermione could be over 17 years old, she could definitely participate in the Triwizard Tournament. However, Miss Hermione is different from ordinary children. She seems to pay more attention to the study of magic, and she may not care so much about the honor of the Goblet of Fire. Hermione will soon get the opportunity to travel through the Marvel world, like the previous times. Today, Miss Hermione was walking on the road and saw a bottle of red wine. Judging from the shape of the red wine, it should not be from Hogwarts. Then it can only be from Marvel. After Hermione picked it up, she directly used the upgraded time converter at the same time and went back to the past time in 10 hours, so as to ensure that if Hermione was in the Marvel world within 10 hours, the time in Hogwarts would not change. Although Hermione is already an old customer of time travel, she is still a little excited about this time travel, because she is eager to know whether the door key is useful. Hermione's fundamental purpose of studying the portkeys at Hogwarts was certainly not to shorten the time of traveling. She hoped that she could take the initiative to cross both sides, let her special ability and the good luck of picking up things return to picking up money, rather than being crowned as an opportunity to cross between Marvel and Hogwarts. Hermione took out the portkey. Sure enough, things are not that simple. The 6 portkeys were all made by Hermione herself. She can feel the magic left on them, and the magic code is more complicated than the QR code. People who cannot crack the magic code cannot use Hermione's portkey to transmit even if they happen to pick up Hermione's portkey. Only Hermione can use it. Cautious Miss Hermione has already thought of all the possibilities. But the distance between Marvel and Hogwarts is too far, and the portkey in Hermione's hand can't feel the coordinates of the Hogwarts portkey at all. It doesn't mean that Hermione's portkeys are out of order in Marvel. They are not out of order. The 3 portkeys in Hermione's hand can still be used in Marvel. Hermione took out one and put it in Iron Man's big seaside villa, and one in Stark Industries. Ordinary muggles need to take a helicopter or drive to travel between the two places. But Miss Hermione doesn't need it. She just took out a portkey she kept and was able to instantly shuttle between the seaside villa and Stark Industries. Very convenient. It's a pity that I can't use the portkey to return to Hogwarts directly. In fact, Hermione herself had expected it. The shuttle between the two worlds is so complicated. It is indeed a bit difficult to travel between the two worlds with only one portkey. Let's take a look at the mission of Marvel this time. Fortunately, the butterfly effect did not trouble Tony Stark again this time. He did not die suddenly again, and he did not lose his arms and legs. Tonight, Tony Stark appeared at a grand party. He just danced with his secretary Virginia Potts and became the focus of the audience. There is no doubt that even if Tony Stark turned over a new leaf after the cave kidnapping incident, he could not completely abandon the romantic nature in his bones. As a god who traveled through Marvel, Miss Hermione Granger would certainly have her own unique way of appearance, and would definitely not come in with a swagger. She was invisible, and no one could see her. There was a glass of red wine that had just been poured on the table. The waiter was about to serve it to the VIP. But the glass of wine suddenly flew up by itself, and then was drunk. The waiter's eyes widened, and he thought he was dazzled. Hermione soon received a prompt from the system. Option 1. Go and dance with Tony Stark to let Iron Man know the elegance of the witches from Hogwarts. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with a box of high-energy red wine. Option 2. Throw a few grenades and bombs, and use gunpowder to cheer them up. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with the exclusive attribute, Villain, +1. Option 3. Find a way to let Tony Stark know that Iron Man's mission has begun and he has to become a superhero. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with 1 super space-time gate. Super space-time gate, what is this? Hermione was a little surprised. She was not surprised by the 3 optional tasks, but this reward was very unexpected. Space-time gate. Is there any special connection between this and the portkey that Miss Hermione had just researched? Hermione knew that the system would not reward such a special thing for no reason. There must be some special purpose and meaning. There is no doubt that Hermione, who wants to get the super space-time gate, must do the option 3 task. Tony Stark, after performing a dance with his sexy female assistant, both of them felt very hot and wanted to go to the rooftop to blow the wind. There were not many people here, and the two looked at each other emotionally. Tony Stark used to be a playboy. He could sleep with any beautiful woman, but now Tony Stark, who has turned back, will not do that. He has begun to be sincere to women. Tony Stark is going to start playing with real feelings. And the only woman who deserves Tony's true feelings is Virginia Potts, who has been with him for many years. Chapter 310 Marvel Superheroes Go to War. Miss Hermione didn't want to disturb their date, but Hermione needed to complete the task. If they wanted to do something else tonight, could Miss Hermione still wait for them outside the door? So, Hermione appeared directly above Tony Stark's head and told him that something was going to happen tonight. Hermione was a god. Virginia Potts didn't know about Miss Hermione's existence yet. Tony Stark's interest was disturbed, but he didn't get angry. Knowing that it was God, he immediately pushed Virginia Potts away and said awkwardly, "Do you want to drink something?" Virginia Potts also sobered up. She secretly cursed herself. How could she not control herself and talk about love with her boss? She also embarrassedly said a kind of wine. Tony Stark immediately left to get the wine. Walking on the road, Tony Stark seemed to be talking to the air. "God, when did you come?" Hermione answered with magic, and only Tony Stark could hear it. "I've been here for a while. I saw you dancing. If there wasn't a mission, I wouldn't have disturbed you." "No, no." Tony Stark was embarrassed. In his mind, God was the most important. People passing by looked at Tony Stark curiously. Others couldn't see Miss Hermione, nor could they hear Miss Hermione talking. Everyone could only see Tony Stark talking to himself, which looked very strange. "What's the mission?" Hermione didn't hide it. She said bluntly, "Do you know why I keep showing up to help you?" Of course, God wouldn't do meaningless things. This world is too chaotic. We need superheroes to save the world. As God, it's not convenient for me to come forward directly. I need God's agent, as a superhero, to help me maintain the world. This lie was very perfect. It means that Tony Stark, you are a superhero chosen by God. Start working for God. Tony Stark was very excited. He didn't know what to say for a while. At this time, there were too many people around, and he was afraid that he would say something he shouldn't say and let outsiders hear it. "So what should I do now?" Hermione said. "Go find the female reporter. She will tell you the answer." Tony Stark's eyes searched for the female reporter, a woman with a good figure, and Tony Stark immediately became embarrassed. She used to. That's right, Tony Stark used to be a playboy, and the female reporter slept with Tony Stark when she interviewed him once. The embarrassing thing is that Tony Stark has played with so many women that he has forgotten the name of the female reporter. Hermione did not mock him. Being romantic is his business and has nothing to do with Hermione's mission. She has previous experience and can provide Tony Stark with the original route to avoid too many uncontrollable endings. If Hermione bypasses the female reporter who provides intelligence and goes directly to the battlefield to save the innocent people who are suffering from the disaster, it may produce an unpredictable butterfly effect, even if it is completely in accordance with the original plot. Because of the appearance of Ms. Hermione, it is still impossible to fully predict the future. Because the Marvel world is too variable. If you are not careful, the ending will be completely indescribable. Tony Stark was still thinking about how to communicate with the female reporter who had a one-night stand and whose name he could not even call out now according to the guidance of God. The female reporter had already seen Tony Stark and quickly came over. After an awkward exchange, the female reporter revealed a major secret to Tony Stark. Stark Industries munitions appeared on the battlefield where they should not have appeared, and innocent people were being slaughtered by the munitions developed by Stark Industries. The female reporter also had photos of innocent people dying tragically in her hand. After seeing these photos, Tony Stark immediately fell silent. He looked in the direction of God, and then solemnly said to the female reporter, Don't worry, I will give you an explanation. Tony was very angry, because the photo that the female reporter just showed him was the leader of the bad guys who kidnapped him last time, the big bald head, and Tony Stark would never forget it for the rest of his life. Burning with anger, it turned out that the bad guys were not completely wiped out last time, and now they are killing innocent people again. After leaving the female reporter, Tony Stark immediately said to God, "Hermione, I will use my latest Iron Man 3 armor to teach those beasts a lesson." The second generation armor was the one that flew to high altitude and froze, and fell down and killed Tony Stark. After that, Tony Stark improved and developed the third generation, which is safer, more stable and more comprehensive. Hermione is still invisible. She stopped Tony Stark from getting angry and said, "Don't worry, before you leave, you have to meet someone." Who? Tony Stark knew that God was omnipotent, but God could not arbitrarily change the cause and effect of the world. So, God chose Tony Stark as Iron Man, to become a superhero, to become God's spokesperson, to save the world. Obadiah Stane. Hermione named the villain in the Iron Man 1 movie who was more vicious than the leader of the bad guys. Tony Stark was obviously stunned. This Obadiah Stane was not an ordinary person. He had a bald head bigger than the leader of the bad guys and a burly body. He didn't look like a good guy. He was the highest CEO of Stark Industries and one of the founders of Stark Industries. He was ambitious. On the surface, he pretended to be Tony Stark's uncle, but in fact, he had a wolfish ambition. The bad guys were the Ten Rings, and the mastermind behind hiring them to kill Tony Stark was Obadiah Stane. At this moment, Tony Stark was chatting and laughing with his business partners, feeling very comfortable. The reason was that although Tony Stark was back, he had never been back before. Tony Stark came back and announced that Stark Industries would no longer research arms, and also declared that he would change his career, causing the company's stock price to plummet. Therefore, Tony Stark was directly sidelined and now he is idle at home. Stark Industries is currently completely controlled by Obadiah Stane. Tony Stark was not invited to the party tonight. He came here to join in the fun, because in the news, people said that he had a mental illness and was paralyzed. Tony Stark showed up to break such rumors. Obadiah Stane was drinking wine well, and he didn't expect Tony Stark to come with a gloomy face. "Stan, I have something to tell you." "Tony, you should be able to see that I'm talking about business now." Obadiah Stane didn't want to give Tony Stark face. After all, he is in control of everything now, and it is easy to kill Tony Stark. He cooperated with the acting at the beginning, but now he doesn't even want to pretend. Tony Stark sensed Obadiah Stane's attitude, and he said without giving him any face, "It's about the Ten Rings gang." Obadiah Stane was panicked. Did this kid Tony Stark know that he was the one who hired someone to kill him? There was no way to stay calm. Obadiah Stane said hello to his business partner, and then hugged Tony Stark's shoulders and went to an empty corner. Obadiah Stane was very big, which Tony Stark could not compare with. Not far away, on the sofa, there was an old rich man in his 70s or 80s hugging supermodels in their 20s. The life of the rich is really chic. Please support my new book. Thank you everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Super Space Time Gate. The gathering place for the upper class was very luxurious, but the content of the communication between Tony Stark and Obadiah Stane was full of solemnity. Obadiah Stane decided to break up with Tony under his continuous questioning. He warned Tony not to meddle in other people's business. Stark Industries was not something that he, who did not understand the market, could manage. I always thought that Tony Stark was just a scientific and technological personnel who focused on research. Most of the company was controlled by Obadiah Stane. Even Tony Stark's life was generally managed by his female assistant Virginia Potts. Tony Stark did not agree with Obadiah Stane's management model. He strongly objected, Do you know how many innocent people were killed when our weapons fell into the hands of bad people? Obadiah Stane also said to Tony Stark in a tough manner, Tony, now is not the time to be a saint, okay? We sell arms. Without war, who should we sell the arms we developed to? Change career, company transformation. Obadiah Stane was fed up with this. Stark Industries' position as an arms dealer was the result of decades of hard work. Transformation is easy to say, but how could Obadiah Stane be willing to accept it? Okay, Tony, stop being childish, go home and stop causing trouble for the company. Tony Stark's attitude was also very tough. He had to stop Stark Industries from going astray. This attitude finally made Obadiah Stane directly fall out. He warned Tony Stark in his ear, Tony, do you know who organized the board of directors to suspend you and send you home? Yes, it was me. Tony, I don't know what's wrong with you. I won't hand over the company to you until you return to your previous state. After that, Obadiah Stane stopped entangled with Tony Stark and went back to the dinner party to continue chatting and laughing with his business partners. Tony Stark's face was very ugly. It was also the first time he realized that this Obadiah Stane, who usually disguised himself well, might not be that simple. Tony Stark asked, God, what should we do next? Hermione said, become a superhero, become a savior. Since Tony Stark cannot control the company, he can control himself and use the Iron Man 3 armor to become a superhero. Even without Ms. Hermione Granger, Tony Stark thought so. Of course, with the guidance of God, Tony Stark will understand what he needs to do better. Quickly returned home. In the underground laboratory, Hermione finally showed her appearance. It was not the first time Tony Stark saw Hermione Granger, but every time he saw her, the feeling of amazement was beyond words. Of course, Tony Stark would not praise Hermione directly, because it would make him look frivolous. It was okay to do this to ordinary beauties, that was romantic and elegant, but to God, it might be disrespectful. This is the latest armor I developed. Tony Stark introduced his equipment to Hermione. He was very proud. In the Marvel world, he was the only one who had a war armor. As an ordinary person, he could use technology to rival the gods. Hermione did two interesting things. She first asked, where is the arc reactor you made in the cave? In the original series, Tony Stark liked new things and hated old things. He made newer and better things and threw away the old ones. It was Tony Stark's female assistant Virginia Potts who collected it and put it in this laboratory as a souvenir. The arc reactor as a souvenir looked quite ornamental, so Tony Stark did not throw it away. Tony Stark squatted down, opened a cabinet and said, I put it here. I was going to throw it away. Virginia Potts, who was not influenced by Hermione, did the same thing as in the original series. Hermione said, keep it well. You should be able to use it in the future. Tony Stark was very surprised. Was this a prophecy given to him by God in advance? Tony would not be careless. He nodded and put it away. Then he asked the smart butler to help Tony Stark put on the Iron Man armor. After putting it on, he showed his face and looked very handsome. Hermione praised him. Well designed. Then he took out his own Nano Iron Man armor and pressed a red button. Nano steel covered Hermione's whole body like countless mercury, and then formed an armor that was more advanced than Tony Stark's Iron Man armor. Tony Stark was stunned. So cool. He is worthy of being a god. He not only knows magic and fairy arts, but also has such great technology. Hermione wanted to complete the task quickly, so she said directly, let's go. Yes, Tony Stark really admired God. The two put on the Iron Man armor at the same time and flew away. Obviously, Tony Stark studied 3 generations of armor to achieve the current fluency and practicality. However, the speed and flexibility of God's iron armor are obviously much faster than Tony Stark's, and it is also easy to wear and cooler. Tony Stark wanted to learn God's nano-manufacturing technology. Hermione was rewarded by the system, and she had not studied it, so of course she had no way to answer Tony Stark. Tony Stark was not discouraged. He believed that he could also develop such a cool nano-Iron Man armor in the future. Hermione did not leave the portkey on the battlefield over there, so naturally she could not teleport there instantly. The two flew until dawn before finally arriving. At this time, the Ten Rings gang was already killing people. Innocent civilians were slaughtered. War is usually very cruel, and it was not fully revealed in the original drama and movie. Hit it. In addition to helping some children, Hermione did not continue to take action. Unlike the Wizarding World, Hermione Granger was originally the heroine in the Harry Potter series, so she was very harmonious there. But it was different on the Marvel side. There was no Miss Hermione Granger here originally. She traveled through time. Her behavior can easily change many things. Tony Stark should be the real superhero. She only needs to do a little good to make up for the condemnation of her conscience. Tony Stark's fighting style is self-taught. Whether it is close combat or the use of firearms, it is the same. When the Ten Rings gang screamed and knew that they were no match for Tony Stark, the Iron Man, they began to hold hostages with guns. Iron Man armor is not afraid of bullets, but ordinary people can't. Seeing the stalemate in the battle, Miss Hermione still did not make a move. If she made a move, a magic spell would solve it, but she knew that Tony Stark would have a way. Sure enough, Tony Stark stood still, seemingly at a loss, but in fact, his mask began to automatically lock the enemy's head with a machine scan. Then a row of muzzles popped out from the shoulders, bang bang bang, with precise strikes. The bullets hit multiple enemies at the same time, and the battle ended directly. Hermione's mission was also declared over at the same time. Congratulations on completing Option 3 mission, and be rewarded with a super space-time gate. Hard work pays off. Hermione finally got this new treasure. Chapter 312 I feel more and more like a god. Tony Stark did not have the soul-searching questions that most people have when facing war. For example, why did he appear here? Why did he take up arms? Was what he did right? Because war is often imminent. There is no time to think, and Tony Stark is not the kind of sentimental person. After Tony Stark rescued a group of innocent people, he flew away directly. The child whose clothes were stained with blood was left behind, looking shocked. Mom, is that a robot? He just saved us. Will he always protect us? Miss Hermione Granger had left the battlefield in advance and did not say hello to Tony Stark. And Tony has become accustomed to the coming and going of God. In a desert, Hermione took out the reward, Super Space-Time Gate, for completing this mission from the system. It doesn't look very big, but when you take it out, it is very big. It is actually a glittering space-time gate. It is colorful and it is not an ordinary door at first glance. There is a lock on the door, which ordinary people cannot open. Hermione suddenly had an idea that the system would not reward her with a locked door for no reason. There must be a very special reason. She looked at the door key she developed in her hand. Perhaps, this is a key that can lead to the door of the magical world. Cautious Hermione first looked around to make sure that she would not be monitored. She walked to the door and took out her own door key. A magical scene unfolded, tightly fitting, as if the super time and space door rewarded by the system existed just for Hermione's door key. When the key and the lock overlapped, Hermione's magic immediately connected the two worlds. 6 door keys, all opened. It felt as if this time and space door was a gate. When the gate was not opened, the Wizard world and the Marvel world could not circulate at all. But as long as this door was opened, she could shuttle between the two worlds at will, and Hermione, who had the coordinates of the door key, could instantly teleport to the place where she left the door key in the Wizard world. Hermione left 3 keys in the Wizard world, and she found the one buried in the dark forest outside Hogwarts through the time and space gate. Turn the key and open the door. At that moment, colorful light gushed out from the door, blowing up Hermione's beautiful face and flowing long hair. Even the Hogwarts uniform on her body fluttered in the wind. However, the next moment, Miss Hermione Granger's graceful figure and delicate face appeared in the dark forest outside Hogwarts. Behind her was still the colorful time and space door. Very excited, all of Hermione's ideas succeeded. She wanted to develop time magic and expand the time converter to 10 hours. She wanted to study time and space magic. Although the door key could not travel back and forth between the two worlds, the system later helped to give the task reward. Time and Space Door. The door key plus the time and space door perfectly gave Hermione the ability to travel between the two worlds anytime and anywhere. I feel like I'm becoming more and more like a god. Originally, telling Iron Man that she was a god was just a pretentious joke. Unexpectedly, when you really think of yourself as something, as long as you have the plug-in and the halo, you will really get closer and closer to this goal. Hermione recovered the time and space door, and she stayed in Hogwarts for the time being. When there is a mission, she will travel through it anytime and anywhere. In the forest, after walking a few steps, Hermione picked up something. A jar of gold coins. The days of picking up money every day are finally back. Hermione smiled slightly and returned to Hogwarts. Unexpectedly, Hermione had just arrived at night in Hogwarts when a new mission came. She was still in Hogwarts, and the system option task directly prompted that the mission location was Marvel. Option 1. Use the time and space door immediately, travel through Marvel, and go to see what the two big bald villains are talking about. Completing the task will reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Continue to stay in Hogwarts, but you have to dance in the square and attract at least 100 people to watch. Complete the task and get a tissue as reward. Option 3. Travel through Marvel and chat with Tony Stark. Complete the task and get a fountain pen as reward. Speechless. Although the system is very humane to give 3 options, and does not force Hermione to travel through Marvel to work, however, staying in Hogwarts means dancing awkwardly, and attracting hundreds of people to watch. What for? She is a god in Marvel. Coming back to Hogwarts, she becomes a joke. Miss Hermione has always been a lady. She would not dance awkwardly for no reason. Option 3 is also, although the task is not difficult, the reward is not worth Hermione's trip through Marvel. Let's start option 1. There are task map coordinates, so Hermione doesn't have to worry about not being able to find it. First, use the door key to come to the dark forest, then release the time and space gate, and then use the door key to open the connection between the two worlds and find the key that Hermione left in the Marvel world. One of them, Hermione left in the desert. The time-space gate was extremely dazzling. Turning the key, Hermione and the others came to the desert of the Marvel world. After putting away the time-space gate, Hermione took out her flying broom and followed the mission map to the lair of the 10 Rings. The bald leader of the 10 Rings could never have dreamed that they would be filmed in the face by the director in the original drama. Here, the invisible goddess Hermione watched their live broadcast. Tonight is destined to be an uneasy night. The 10 Rings were severely injured by Iron Man Tony Stark twice. The first time was in the cave where they were imprisoned. That time, they suffered heavy losses and a large amount of ammunition was blown up. This time, they went to slaughter ordinary people, but were intercepted by Iron Man again and were almost wiped out. Today, there are almost no 10 Rings left. Tony Stark's face was burned and has not healed yet. But tonight, the few remaining people in the 10 Rings are all on high alert. Several off-road vehicles arrived, and a group of well-equipped black-clad men got out. The door opened, and a big bald man smoking a cigar got out. His manner was even more arrogant than the 10 Rings. Both sides had weapons, but neither of them took action, because they were underground business partners. Miss Hermione had already traveled through time and space, and in order to avoid being bored while doing her mission, she secretly picked up a camera to take pictures. Ordinary muggles, of course, could not notice the existence of God. Hermione. 2 big bald leaders entered the tent, and the 10 Rings boss took out the Iron Man 1 armor that his men had dug out in the desert. It was the most primitive armor made by Tony Stark in the cave. It was originally simple, and now it was broken into pieces because of damage. But when put together, it still looked amazing. I'll give this to you. You help me make 10,000 sets of this equipment, and I want all my soldiers to be equipped with it. With such an armored force, I will rule the world. The 10 Rings boss is quite ambitious. Obadiah Stane, the big bald guy, certainly won't let him be complacent. If the 10 Rings gang rules the world, who will the weapons developed by Stark Industries be sold to in the future? The business of arms dealers, of course, requires the existence of the battlefield market. Without the market, there will be no business. This Iron Man armor developed by Tony Stark is too perfect in Obadiah Stane's eyes. He didn't expect that Tony Stark actually used this to escape from the cave. Obadiah Stane must get this thing, and he doesn't want to cooperate with the Ten Rings gang, a group of bumpkins. They are no longer of any use. Please support the new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 313 Mask of Pain. If she were a god who did whatever she wanted, Hermione would throw a few rockets at this moment and blow up all the villains in Iron Man 1. Of course, it can be done, but after doing so, Miss Hermione may not be able to predict the future. God, who is afraid of trouble, just do it as simple as possible. Inside the tent, because the leader of the Ten Rings gang, the leader, was too confident, he thought this was his territory and he had to lie down even if a dragon came. He ignored that the most truthless villains always robbed the thieves. Obadiah Stane, the bigger bald guy, didn't say much nonsense. As he had higher IQ and technology than the other party, he had at least a dozen ways to instantly subdue the other party. However, in order to show off and show the difference between the military technology boss and this ordinary Ten Rings gang leader, Obadiah Stane took out a button that looked like a sports car key and pressed it. The harsh sound instantly paralyzed the whole body of the Ten Rings gang leader, making him unable to move at all. The leader of the Ten Rings could only open his eyes wide with horror. Not only were his eyeballs instantly covered with bloodshot, but even his face and skin were covered with blood vessels, which was very scary. Obadiah Stane turned off the button in his hand and took off the things in his ears. He smiled triumphantly and said, "You country bumpkins will never understand the charm of technology." After that, he went straight to the outside of the tent and waved his hand. The subordinates he brought with him immediately rushed in and took away all the Iron Man armor. After a series of gunshots, the few remaining subordinates of the Ten Rings were also killed. The means were quite vicious. As a bystander, Miss Hermione still admired Obadiah Stane's decisiveness and ruthlessness. The people of the Ten Rings were not good birds either, and Miss Hermione certainly would not sympathize with them. However, Obadiah Stane was too old and ugly, and he really didn't have any villain charm. The same is true for Voldemort in the wizarding world. At the beginning, Hermione's fear of Voldemort was not small. Now, with the continuous improvement of her strength, Hermione is no longer so afraid of Voldemort. However, she is cautious and still adheres to the law of caution. After successfully completing the task, Miss Hermione returned to the desert where the door key was left, opened the door of time and space, and used the door key to return directly to Hogwarts. In order to ensure that she could have enough sleep, she used the time converter. Now that she is back, she turned off the time converter and did not waste a second on the task. Miss Hermione is a female academic bully. Even though she has accumulated many years of academic achievements, she still has not stopped learning. On the premise of ensuring that she has a good life, she is learning and improving every day. In the past, it was pure learning. Now Hermione is already a professor among wizards, and she can even output in reverse. Through her dependence on time magic and space magic, Hermione has researched something remarkable and can be regarded as a veritable old professor. Today, the Hogwarts Great Hall is very lively because today is a relatively special day. Everyone is looking forward to it. The list of the Triwizard Tournament will be announced. Who are the 3 warriors who will represent their respective colleges to participate in the competition? This year, many incredible things happened to Hermione. There are also many new faces in Hogwarts this year. Among them, Barty Crouch, the director of the Ministry of Magic's executive department, has stayed in Hogwarts for work. The students were noisy below, while the professors and principals above were talking to each other. Because a lot of things happened this year, Malfoy had no time to pursue Miss Hermione. Ordinary girls would be very surprised when facing a boy who had pursued them for several years and suddenly stopped pursuing them, but Miss Hermione would not be like that. Malfoy did not bother her, but she could be free and at ease. Her beauty and nobility did not need someone like Malfoy to support her. Let's start. Because there were too many students in the Great Hall, and there were also students from 2 other magic schools, Harry and Ron came late and couldn't even find a seat. Fortunately, They were smart and knew that Miss Hermione must have prepared, so they came to Hermione's side. As expected, Hermione did not disappoint them and took out 2 benches for them. "Thank you." Ron took it happily. When he wanted to say something to his goddess, Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts, stood up and spoke. He was of course very prestigious in Hogwarts. When he spoke, the students all fell silent. Now, it is the long-awaited warrior selection. Perhaps because the lighting in the Hogwarts Great Hall was too good and there was no mysterious atmosphere he wanted, Dumbledore raised his hand and the power of magic dimmed the light. Such a move, of course, could make everyone pay more attention to Dumbledore. Dumbledore's clothes today were not conspicuous, but the goblet of fire beside him was very dazzling. When Dumbledore waved his hand, the flame in the goblet of fire turned red directly, and then a piece of parchment with 4 corners burned flew out and fell into Dumbledore's hands. Dumbledore picked it up and saw that the name was not unexpected. Victor Krum, the Durmstrang warrior. This name is very famous. If Harry Potter's fame comes from his love-hate relationship with the mysterious Voldemort, then Krum's fame comes from the Quidditch World Cup. In the Wizarding world, the Quidditch World Cup is quite popular, and it is not surprising that Krum can become a big star. The students of Durmstrang Academy of Magic all applauded, because Krum's ability is outstanding, and everyone is not surprised that he can become a player in the Triwizard Tournament. There is only joy and encouragement. At this moment, Krum is undoubtedly the focus of the audience, and his next behavior is slightly strange. Krum's strong and tall body searched in the crowd until he saw Miss Hermione Granger, who was blessed with the aura of low-key. So charming, this beautiful witch lady. Ron saw his former star idol flirting with his beloved goddess Miss Hermione Granger again, and he felt uncomfortable in an instant. The good impression she had of Krum disappeared bit by bit. Hermione was used to being admired by men. She didn't have enough self-protection ability in the past, and she was worried that she would be too conspicuous, so she added a lot of low-key. Of course, low-key is also Miss Hermione's character. Now Miss Hermione's initial self-protection is definitely not a problem, and she is not as repulsive to being noticed as before, and of course she is not ecstatic. She didn't care at first, just like she didn't care whether Malfoy continued to pursue her, but the funny system didn't seem to intend to let go of this more interesting detail. A translucent pop-up window with a magic style appeared in front of her. Option 1. Facing Krum's flirting. You can respond with a charming flying kiss. Complete the task to reward 1 Barbie pink lipstick. Option 2. Pretends to be pregnant, vomit crazily, and be in a fierce state. Complete the task to reward 1 pain mask. Option 3. Don't care, silence is golden, and don't care about the slightest disturbance in the outside world. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Chapter 314 Harry Potter's name. What's going on? Hermione was slightly stunned. She was used to the funny options, but what was surprising was that the pain mask. Is this real or fake? The pain mask is a good thing. In addition to being a popular meme on the internet before Hermione traveled through time, it is also a good equipment like the Omen and the Witch's Cloak. Item attributes: plus 120 spell attack, plus 5% cooldown reduction, plus 800 maximum life. Equipment effect: unique passive torture. When the skill hits the enemy, it will cause 3% of the current health value of spell damage every 0.5 seconds, lasting for 2 seconds, and can cause up to 200 damage to wild monsters each time. Cooldown time: 2 seconds. Of course, the above is the details of the pain mask in the game. In the Wizarding world, the system rewards will definitely change. When Miss Hermione was in the 1st grade, she only received defensive equipment. This is the first time she has received mage attack equipment, but Hermione has some doubts. Could it be fake? Because the system has recently rewarded a lot of magical equipment, such as the very practical Super Space Time Gate. Now it is so kind to give away the pain mask. Besides, this option 2 is really embarrassing. Pretends to be pregnant, vomit, and show your teeth and claws. Is this a direct performance of the Mask of Pain? So, is the system cheating her? People can't just give up their image for rewards. As a lady, Miss Hermione still cares about her image. After hesitating again and again, she still feels that people should not be too greedy. If you want everything, you will definitely get nothing. Besides, the reward for option 3 is not bad, except for option 1. The Death Barbie pink lipstick is a bit disgusting. The rewards for the other 2 options are not bad. Miss Hermione finally couldn't pretend to be pregnant. She chose 3. Silence is golden, and she didn't give Crumb any response. Whether it was blowing a kiss or vomiting, it was too artificial. Even if there was a reward like the Mask of Pain, Hermione would not violate her principles. Congratulations on completing the option 3 task. Reward basic attribute +1. Hermione counted the attribute points she had accumulated during this period. There is no doubt that the ability of her attribute points, which are like inscriptions, has long surpassed the Mask of Pain. Magic +75 HP +62 Loki +55 Agility +65 Defense +62 Strength +58 Stealth +53 Beautiful +9 Charm +9 Body +9 Skin +9 Wisdom +9 Gentleness +1 Soul +1 Optimism +1 Teasing +2 Good Guy +1 Painter +1 Performance +1 Decisiveness +1 Silence +1 Quietness +1. These attributes also successfully created the outstanding Miss Hermione Granger. Outsiders certainly didn't understand what Miss Hermione had gained and what she had lost. Headmaster Dumbledore began to continue his work. Although most of the smart students could guess the answer, as long as it hadn't been announced, everyone still kept their expectations. The goblet of fire that couldn't be ignored turned red again, and the burning parchment flew out of it. After Dumbledore took it, he read out the name loudly. The champion of Buke's batons, Fleur Delacour. A very tall beauty stood up excitedly. From the perspective of ordinary people, Fleur Delacour is definitely a great beauty. Of course, she can't be compared with the enchantingly beautiful Miss Hermione. Everyone got to know each other and applauded and congratulated. Headmaster Dumbledore did not delay and continued to take the new name that flew out of the goblet of fire, Hogwarts. Cedric Diggory. The applause was even more enthusiastic than before, and it immediately resounded throughout the Great Hall. It was not because Cedric Diggory was very handsome, but this was Hogwarts, where there were the most students. Although many students envied Cedric Diggory for having such an opportunity, as a student of Hogwarts, of course they had to give him encouragement. Cedric Diggory was also very happy. He had sensed it before his name was read out. However, when his name was really the last contestant in the Triwizard Tournament, it undoubtedly made Cedric Diggory even happier. Dumbledore opened his arms to show his friendliness, as if he was hugging the 3 warriors selected by the Goblet of Fire from a distance. Great! Our 3 warriors have been selected, but in the end only one can go down in history. Only one can hold the championship trophy, the symbol of victory. Dumbledore was using words to exaggerate the glory represented by the trophy of the Triwizard Tournament. The students who cared about these false names were of course very excited. While speaking, the director of the Enforcement Department of the Ministry of Magic, Mr. Barty Crouch, also cooperated very well and brought the glittering trophy. That's the trophy of the Triwizard Tournament. Supreme honor. The students who cared about the trophy have begun to get excited. Just when everyone thought that everything was about to be settled, Professor Snape of Hogwarts first noticed something and looked over with his head tilted. Headmaster Dumbledore also noticed it, and he looked back with a puzzled look on his face. The flame of the goblet of fire turned from blue to red again. How is this possible? The Triwizard Tournament should only select 3 students' names. Is there something wrong with the Goblet of Fire this year? No one noticed the special expression of Mad-Eye Moody, the new defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts this year. Miss Hermione, who was watching the show, saw the system pop up again. It was obvious that she wanted to watch the show quietly, which was unlikely. Option 1. Use advanced magic to make the Goblet of Fire spit out your name. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with a copy of the animated film Your Name. Option 2. Suddenly make a face to Ron so that Ron can't figure out the situation. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with a Mask of Pain. Option 3. Loudly tell Headmaster Dumbledore that it was Mad-Eye Moody who secretly put Harry Potter's name in the Goblet of Fire. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with +1 basic attribute. Interesting, although your name is good, it is not enough for Hermione to risk having her name in the Goblet of Fire. Isn't this asking for trouble? Pointing out Mad-Eye Moody's conspiracy in public is good, and at the same time, Miss Hermione can also test what the butterfly effect in the wizarding world looks like. However, neither of the above two is as valuable as Hermione getting the Mask of Pain. Again, just now, the system option task asked Hermione to dress up as a pregnant woman and vomit. The Lady Hermione refused and naturally lost the qualification to get the Mask of Pain. Unexpectedly, there was more than one chance. This time, she only needed to make a face to Ron and scare him to pass. Where can I find such a good thing? There is no doubt that Hermione would naturally choose this task. When Headmaster Dumbledore was still surprised at the malfunction of the Goblet of Fire, Ron suddenly noticed that his goddess Miss Hermione approached. I saw that the face with more beautiful features than the fairy in the sky suddenly dressed up as a not ugly face, which really surprised Ron. What is the goddess doing? Ron was still trying to find out what happened to the goddess. Did your face cramp? Miss Hermione quickly returned to normal. The goddess' face was calm, her eyebrows were sharp, her eyes were bright, as if the sudden appearance of the ghost face was just an illusion. Just when Ron was very puzzled, Headmaster Dumbledore had already taken the parchment spit out from the Goblet of Fire. Only this piece of parchment was the most special because it was still smoking. Harry Potter, please support the new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 315 Crazy Face Slapping. In public, the usually calm and composed Headmaster Dumbledore finally couldn't calm down. It was unbelievable. It was such a slap in the face. The Goblet of Fire had never had any problems in Hogwarts in previous years. But this year, such a thing actually happened. You know, the circle outside the Goblet of Fire was drawn by Dumbledore, and before, Ron's twin brother almost humiliated himself by trying to use an age-increasing potion to get away with it, but he was bounced out and turned into an old man by magic, becoming a laughingstock. However, today, at such a solemn and formal moment, Harry Potter, a student who was obviously underage, not only had his name on the parchment and the Goblet of Fire, but was also selected as a player in the Triwizard Tournament. It was simply a crazy slap in the face. The development of the matter was completely beyond the expectations of Headmaster Dumbledore, and Dumbledore's face changed instantly. He was very angry. Harry Potter's abnormality was completely disrespectful to Headmaster Dumbledore. At this moment, Dumbledore had no face at all. The whole place was unusually quiet, and everyone raised their eyes to look for the warrior named Harry Potter. Normally, there would only be 3 warriors in the Triwizard Tournament, but this year it was obviously different. The tall Hagrid also shook his head in disbelief. No, this is impossible. Harry Potter, Dumbledore urgently needed a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, as the most famous legendary headmaster of Hogwarts, he would not be able to step down. So Dumbledore yelled loudly and angrily. This kind of frustrated behavior also just shows that Dumbledore is old and is beginning to be unable to deal with some things. Miss Hermione's funny system began to jump out again to join in the fun. Option 1. Encourage Harry Potter. Let him muster up the courage to face difficulties. Don't be afraid. Go up and participate in the Triwizard Tournament. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Use the door key to let Harry Potter quickly escape from Hogwarts. Escape is the best solution at this moment. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, Wisdom, +1. Option 3. Don't ask. Harry Potter's affairs have nothing to do with me. Just be quiet and don't cause trouble for yourself. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, Low Key, +1. Now as Miss Hermione's strength continues to rise, after Miss Hermione completes the task and obtains basic attribute points, she rarely takes the initiative to add points to Low Key. This behavior is easy to compare. Little tigers and little lions, although they are very ferocious beasts, they are actually very fragile in their infancy. At this time, if they don't keep a low profile and wait to grow up, they are very likely to die. However, when the tigers and lions grow up, of course they still need to be cautious when going out, but they don't need to be as low-key and cautious as in childhood. Hermione is already quite powerful now, so, low-key, is dispensable for her, and prudence is the top priority. It's just participating in Harry Potter's participation in the Triwizard Tournament, no big deal. Harry Potter is the protagonist of the Harry Potter series. If what happened to him was relatively ordinary, then he didn't need to be the protagonist at all. Just be a passerby. Since you're the male protagonist, you must stand out. So, Hermione reached out and patted Harry on the shoulder, whispering, "Go, Harry, be brave, you are the best." If Harry knew that Hermione had a door key and could teleport away from here instantly through space magic, his first thought would definitely be to escape. After all, the Great Hall was crowded today. Harry's name appeared in the Goblet of Fire. This cheating behavior is obviously not an honor. It can be seen from the anger of Headmaster Dumbledore that he felt particularly ashamed. If it weren't for the encouragement of Ms. Hermione beside him, Harry would not dare to go up at all. This is not going to the stage to receive an award. Ron looked at Harry's back. He was very angry, thinking that Harry was such a good buddy of his, but he actually concealed him in the Goblet of Fire Triwizard Tournament. Even if Ron Weasley's name was not put into the Goblet of Fire, at least Ron should know it. Could it be that Harry was afraid that Ron would secretly tell on him? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Ron's face changed completely with anger. Professor Snape, Professor McGonagall, and all the students of Hogwarts looked at Harry Potter at this moment. Fortunately, Harry Potter's psychological endurance was okay. Otherwise, facing such a big scene, with countless pairs of questioning eyes, most people could not bear it. The more funny detail is that although the flame finally chose Harry Potter, it was obvious that the parchment with Harry Potter's name on it was different from others. Although the parchments of others were also burned into strange shapes, they were all extinguished when they were spit out from the Goblet of Fire. Only Harry Potter's was still smoking in Dumbledore's hand. People with myopia who can't see clearly may mistakenly think that Principal Dumbledore is smoking at this moment. He cheated. He is not even 17 years old. How could this happen? I am so disappointed. We are all under 17 years old. Why can Harry Potter? Most of the students in the field were very unconvinced. The rules were clearly set, but the result was so ridiculous. Harry Potter's face was also livid. Although he had never been at peace while studying at Hogwarts, and he had been questioned and suspected more than once or twice, this time, he really couldn't stand it. There were too many people, the scene was too big. However, only Professor McGonagall felt that Harry Potter's expression was not fake. She immediately combined her guesses from previous years and concluded that it must be a bad guy who was secretly plotting against Harry Potter. Even with her toes, she could guess that it was Harry Potter's mortal enemy, Voldemort's people. So, Professor McGonagall, who was the first to wake up, patted Harry on the shoulder and showed a comforting attitude. With Professor McGonagall's comfort, Harry Potter clearly felt that the blood in his body began to warm up. As long as there were still people who were willing to believe in him, he could bear it even if 99% of the people in the world doubted him. Mad-Eye Moody was in a very good mood at the moment. Harry Potter did not disappoint him. He was the one who put the parchment with Harry Potter's name on it. But the Goblet of Fire finally chose Harry Potter, which was enough to show that this kid was a chosen one. Even the Goblet of Fire was willing to break the rules for this kid. The previous rules always required 3 candidates, but today there were 4. This was very unfair to other magic schools. So, the principals of Buxbaton School of Magic and Durmstrang School of Magic had the ugliest expressions on the scene. However, since there were so many people, they also had to save face and did not explode in public. After everyone entered the special room and closed the door, the principals of the other 2 magic schools exploded directly. What's going on? Dumbledore, you have to explain. You must explain clearly. This year's Triwizard Tournament is held at Hogwarts. This has never happened before in the Goblet of Fire. Dumbledore did not rush to explain to the other 2 principals who were about to tear their faces apart, and rushed directly to Harry Potter. Today's Harry Potter can be said to have made Dumbledore lose face. Dumbledore was really angry because Harry Potter was the wizard student he secretly valued the most. but he did not expect that Harry would teach him a deep lesson today. Chapter 316, Traveling Through Marvel to Eat Melon. Dumbledore was also an old fox. Even the deputy headmaster Professor McGonagall could see it, so Dumbledore could naturally see the clues. However, he was the headmaster of Hogwarts. In front of outsiders, he could not act like Professor McGonagall and directly favor Harry Potter. Dumbledore had to pretend that he was completely unaware and had a completely fair and open attitude. "What's going on, Harry? Did you put your name into the Goblet of Fire?" Dumbledore's old face almost kissed Harry, and his old hands also grabbed Harry's shoulders and didn't let go. His questioning was mixed with anger and confusion. "No, it wasn't me." Harry Potter had to defend himself. To be honest, he didn't expect this to happen. "Did you ask the senior students to vote?" Dumbledore deliberately said this to the other two headmasters, because the faces of the other two headmasters were quite ugly. "No," Harry answered firmly. "Are you sure?" Dumbledore continued to ask. "I'm sure." The giantess headmaster of Buxbaton School of Magic finally couldn't help it. She felt that Dumbledore was just acting. He must be lying. There are so many wizard students under the age of 17. Why is Harry Potter so special? He's not lying. Mad-Eye Moody is going to act. It's not easy for Harry to become a warrior contestant. He can't let the other two headmasters ruin it. As Harry Potter's defense against the dark arts professor, he stood up to help and said, "The Goblet of Fire is a magical object with superpowers. Only a confusion spell with superpowers can deceive it. A fourth-year student can't have this magic power." Mad-Eye Moody's words seemed to reveal that he knew the Goblet of Fire very well. "Your idea seems to make some sense, Mad-Eye." The male headmaster of Durmstrang School of Magic, who used to be a Death Eater, stood up and spoke. It seemed that he supported Mad-Eye Moody, but in fact, his tone was not very friendly. It seemed that there was another layer of meaning mixed in his ordinary words. "Mad-Eye Moody is not a simple wizard," he directly retorted. "My previous job required me to think like a dark wizard. Have you forgotten this?" It turned out that the headmaster of Durmstrang School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, who was a Death Eater at the time, was captured by Mad-Eye Moody and sent to Azkaban. There was such a bad fate between the two. Dumbledore did not want to deepen the conflict between the two colleges. He quickly interrupted and said, "That won't solve the problem." Dumbledore walked to the director of the Enforcement Department of the Ministry of Magic. Since he had just entered the room for this secret meeting, Director Barty Crouch had said nothing, and his face was also serious and ugly. "It's Harry Potter again." In the last Quidditch World Cup Death Eater attack, Harry Potter was also suspected of releasing the Dark Mark. "This kid is simply a troublemaker." Dumbledore was very cunning. He pushed this difficult problem, which would offend people no matter what he did, directly to Barty Crouch and said, "You decide, Barty." As for Ms. Hermione, she thought that the next option task of the system would require her to go in stealthily and eat melons. After all, this kind of stealthily eating melons at close range is not the first or second time. But what Miss Hermione didn't expect was that the system task was to travel through Marvel. The melons and the Goblet of Fire in Hogwarts haven't been eaten yet, and she has to go to Marvel to eat them again. Hermione didn't hesitate, and quickly used the portkey to leave the Hogwarts Great Hall, moved out of the time and space gate in the depths of the Dark Forest, and used the portkey again to travel directly to the Marvel world. There are still some differences in the air between the two worlds, and the climate and temperature are also different, but it's not a big problem. Hermione came to Iron Man's Stark Industries, and the system options appeared in front of her. Option 1. Use a nuclear warhead to blow up Stark Industries. Art is explosion. Completing the mission will reward you with 1 hydrogen bomb. Option 2. Help Iron Man's female assistant Virginia Potts successfully copy Obadiah Stane's secret files. Completing the mission will reward you with basic attributes +2. Option 3. Go to Iron Man Tony Stark for a drink, and completing the mission will reward you with 1 winery. Damn, the system is really generous for this mission. Hydrogen bomb, basic attributes +2, winery. These are not small things. I haven't finished eating the melons in Hogwarts, but I have come here to work, and my unhappy mood has also dissipated a lot. Fortunately, It is not the first time that Ms. Hermione has traveled back and forth between the two worlds. Practice makes perfect. Although the hydrogen bomb is wonderful, the mission is too difficult. Although the winery is good, Miss Hermione's space ring can't fit it, and she doesn't really need it. It's more practical to have basic attributes plus 2. So Miss Hermione put on the invisibility cloak and entered the interior of Stark Industries with all her equipment. This time, unlike before, Miss Hermione put on a mask. This mask is ugly, but it is very useful. Mask of Pain. This is the reward that Miss Hermione received after completing the task at Hogwarts. She didn't have time to study it carefully. After traveling through Marvel, she put it on for the first time to see the effect. Speaking of masks, Miss Hermione thought of a movie about masks she had watched before she traveled through time, when she was still an ordinary beautiful high school student. In the movie, as long as you put on the mask, you can become a Superman. Even a dog can wear it and it can be very amazing. It's a very funny movie, but the mask is really awesome. Mask of Pain. Of course it's not that kind. Hermione knew when she took it in her hand that it was a powerful plug-in used by the system to forcibly take it from King of Glory. It is a mage equipment often chosen by mid-lane mages as the most outstanding witch in Hogwarts. Miss Hermione is the first time she has equipped output equipment. Not to mention, the things rewarded by the system are usually very humane. Although the mask is ugly, it is very comfortable to wear and not heavy. The most important thing is that after wearing it, you feel that all functions of the body have been comprehensively improved. The most obvious is the increase in mana. It's really a good thing. Hermione came to the office of the bald villain Obadiah Stane, and the system released the task at the right time. In the original drama and movie, the plot may not be so fast, but the goddess Hermione always crosses over and interferes, causing the plot of Iron Man to be fast-forwarded. Tony Stark arranged for the female secretary to steal Obadiah Stane's information because Tony Stark was currently sidelined and he couldn't do it. And the purpose of stealing the information was not because he had begun to doubt this uncle like Obadiah Stane. It was because the two people had different ideas. Obadiah Stane could abandon justice and humanity for the development of the company and to make money. Tony Stark needs to find out which bad organizations Obadiah Stane sold weapons to. Tony Stark wants to transform into Iron Man and destroy all the weapons of those bad organizations such as the Ten Rings. Without weapons, the bad guys will inevitably kill less. However, Tony Stark never dreamed that what he arranged his female assistant Virginia Potts to do for the original intention of world peace indirectly exposed Obadiah Stane's true face as a villain. Miss Hermione used magic to sneak into Obadiah Stane's office very easily without triggering any alarm. And Virginia Potts, as an important employee of the company, also came in easily, but she didn't come to the company for work today. So Virginia Potts felt guilty and entered Obadiah Stane's office carefully and quickly closed the door. New book, please support. Thank you everyone. Chapter 317 Race Against Time. Ms. Hermione, who was hiding in the dark, watched Virginia Potts perform hard. It was not easy. As Tony Stark's assistant, she could work in the kitchen and be an agent. Not good. Before Virginia Potts opened Obadiah Stane's computer, the bald villain leader was about to walk in. How could this be possible? In the original movie, the task was completed at a critical moment, but here it was about to end before it even started. At this time, the role of Goddess Hermione was revealed. She waved her wand gently, and the bald Obadiah Stane outside the door suddenly remembered that he had not yet gone to the toilet, and immediately covered his stomach and went to the toilet. Ms. Hermione, who acted in secret, was very well known. On Virginia Potts' side, she nervously used the USB virus given to her by Tony Stark to successfully open the password lock of Obadiah Stane's computer, and then entered the folder to start copying. However, when Virginia Potts found a special folder and clicked it, she was stunned. All of these are the design drawings of the first generation of Iron Man armor. Although Virginia Potts doesn't know much about them, she also knows that this is what Tony Stark is currently studying every day in the villa. Tony Stark said that he would never tell anyone about it this time, but how could Obadiah Stane have such a thing? Judging from the style, it is relatively bulky, but it is indeed the same product as Tony Stark's armor. Virginia Potts was so shocked that she felt that she had discovered an unexpected big secret. And then there was nothing else. At this time, the system options popped up in front of Miss Hermione. Option 1. Help Virginia Potts find evidence that Obadiah Stane sent people to kidnap Tony Stark. Complete the task and reward basic attributes +2. Option 2. Use magic to make Obadiah Stane have diarrhea in the toilet until he collapses, and complete the task and reward 1 box of antidiarrheal medicine. Option 3. Don't ask, complete the task and reward 1 hamburger. Miss Hermione was speechless. When diarrhea and hamburgers appeared as rewards for the mission at the same time, the latter immediately lost the charm of food that it should have. Moreover, the rewards for the latter 2 missions were really a bit trivial, not as good as the rewards given by option 1. Just give it a try. Virginia Potts never knew that there was a beautiful Lady Hermione standing behind her. The collision of magic and science is 2 completely incompatible power systems. Like a plug-in, it was broken by Miss Hermione. A magical scene appeared in front of Virginia Potts. The computer began to be out of control and operated by itself. The mouse on the screen instantly became a shadow clone, and countless arrows opened multiple folders at the same time. Fortunately, the computer configuration of the villain Obadiah Stane was good, otherwise ordinary computers might not be able to operate at all and would directly freeze and blue screen. What's going on? Is it infected with a virus? Virginia Potts was originally guilty of being a thief, and at this moment she was even more panicked. Fortunately, this strange situation did not last long. Hermione used the power of magic to successfully find the video file of Obadiah Stane sending people to kidnap Tony Stark. Obadiah Stane was careless and actually kept such important evidence. As a result, it was exposed today. Oh my God, what is this? Virginia Potts was stunned. It was more shocking than finding out that Obadiah Stane knew about the Iron Man armor. Virginia Potts certainly knew that her boss Tony Stark was captured by the bad guys and taken to the cave. You know, the second-generation arc reactor on Tony Stark's chest was replaced by her hands. She almost never doubted that her beloved boss Tony Stark had survived a narrow escape and suffered so much suffering, but it was Obadiah Stane, who was like Tony Stark's uncle, who was behind it. This is too hard to accept. Virginia Potts's face changed. She discovered a major secret, causing her hands and feet to tremble a little. She was very worried that Obadiah Stane would break in at this time. Fortunately, with Miss Hermione's secret protection, Virginia Potts finally copied all the evidence materials in a hurry. With these things, Obadiah Stane can be completely ruined and spend his old age in prison. Just when Virginia Potts unplugged the USB drive and stood up to leave in a hurry, Obadiah Stane, who was almost exhausted by diarrhea in the toilet after being cast a spell by Miss Hermione, finally came back. He saw Virginia Potts in his office, and a bad premonition appeared in his mind. Potts, what are you doing here? Virginia Potts was very panicked. When Iron Man asked her to do this, she refused, but because she loved Tony Stark, she was willing to take risks for Iron Man. The answer was really shocking. The USB drive was still in Virginia Potts's hand, and her palms were sweating because of nervousness. She was just a female assistant. Although she was very talented, it was her first time to do such a special job as an agent stealing important intelligence. Fortunately, Virginia Potts was really good. She immediately picked up the newspaper on the table and covered the USB flash drive in her hand. I have some company matters to ask you, but you were not here just now, so I handled it myself. Obadiah Stane certainly didn't believe it. He looked at the newspaper in Virginia Potts's hand and questioned, "Is this today's newspaper? Show it to me." A click. Virginia Potts' heart almost skipped a beat for a moment. She turned her left hand over her right hand behind her back and handed the newspaper to Obadiah Stane. Although Obadiah Stane was cunning, he didn't know the real intention of Virginia Potts coming to his office. He took a look at the newspaper and felt that there was nothing wrong. When Virginia Potts was about to leave secretly, she was stopped by the bald Obadiah Stane again. Virginia Potts. Her heart tightened again. Virginia Potts had never been so scared and nervous in her life. After learning Obadiah Stane's secret, Virginia Potts knew that the big bald man in front of her was definitely a tough guy. What? Although Obadiah Stane was exhausted from diarrhea, he still pretended to be cool and said, "Tony Stark is short-sighted. He has a talent for military weapons, but he doesn't know how to use them at all." Virginia Potts, I admire you very much. If you are tired of Tony Stark, you can come to me at any time. Obadiah Stane's words seemed to have two meanings. Obadiah Stane seemed to be attracted by Virginia Potts's talent, and also seemed to be attracted by Virginia Potts's figure and beauty. Virginia Potts pretended to be calm and showed a very forced smile and said, "Thank you for your kindness. I will think about it carefully." After saying that, she finally left successfully in a cold sweat. Obadiah Stane finally thought of something at this time, and he immediately came to the computer. Perhaps the diarrhea affected Obadiah Stane's IQ, and he was attracted by Virginia Potts's beauty, so he ignored the most important thing. Fuck. As expected, Obadiah Stane's computer password was cracked, and it was obvious that someone had touched it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 Agents of SHIELD. Hermione saw Obadiah Stane's rage, but she had no sympathy. Since she chose to be a villain in Marvel, she had to be prepared to be eliminated. This is why Miss Hermione insisted on justice. Whether it is the Harry Potter series or the Marvel series, justice must prevail. Under such objective conditions, if you still go against the will of heaven and choose the villain camp, even if you have a good time, the ending will not be much better. You still have to look at the overall situation. This is also the reason why it is often said that choice is more important than hard work. After Obadiah Stane saw that his computer was touched, he immediately chased out. At this moment, Virginia Potts had already come downstairs of the company like she was running away. From the perspective of the bald villain Obadiah Stane, you can see Virginia Potts chatting with a special person downstairs. That person is an agent from the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, abbreviated as SHIELD. In fact, this SHIELD agent had appeared before. When Tony Stark successfully escaped from the cave with the Iron Man armor, their department noticed Tony Stark and wanted to approach him in a friendly way to understand the specific situation. However, when Tony Stark first heard about the department they called themselves, the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, he was overwhelmed. He replied directly without interest, "You really need to change the name." Phil Coulson, who was the agent in charge at the time, nodded and said, "We will consider it." This time when Agent Phil Coulson was waiting for Virginia Potts originally just wanted to leave as soon as possible, but she vaguely remembered the other party, so she asked, "You are Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics?" The name of the agent department was too long, and Virginia Potts couldn't remember it clearly. Phil Coulson immediately handed over his business card and said, "We have changed our name to SHIELD, and I am Phil Coulson, an agent of SHIELD. Hello." Virginia Potts needed help from others, especially partners of justice. She hesitated and said, "Do you have a lot of authority? We can handle any security issues." SHIELD is awesome. Virginia Potts felt like she had found a savior. She immediately said, "Obadiah Stane must have discovered that I had touched his computer. He will definitely go to Area 16 to start the prototype. Let's go there to arrest him." Area 16? Virginia Potts said too much at once, and Phil Coulson didn't quite understand. But Agent Phil Coulson also understood the importance of the matter. He quickly called and asked SHIELD to send more agents to cooperate with the arrest. Virginia Potts also took out the USB drive for Phil Coulson to check, and he probably understood the whole story. As an agent of SHIELD, Phil Coulson specializes in dealing with various supernatural things, but when he saw the design drawings of the first generation of Iron Man, he was still shocked. This must be a very dangerous thing. If it is mass-produced, the consequences will be disastrous. Global security will be threatened. We must act immediately. Miss Hermione knew that the Iron Man 1 movie was about to end, and she didn't want to leave regardless of whether she had any tasks here. At the same time, she didn't want the time of the wizarding world to be chaotic, so she found a deserted place, released the time and space gate, used the door key, and returned to Hogwarts first. Then she turned the time converter and went back to 10 hours ago. Finally, she passed through the time and space gate and used the door key to open the Marvel world. Miss Hermione used this card rule method to get 10 hours of free time in the Marvel world, but the time in Hogwarts can be guaranteed to be basically still. On the Marvel side, the story began to become unusually exciting. Miss Hermione's system tasks also popped up frequently. Although the funny, destruction and low-key tasks were carried out at the same time, Miss Hermione could get rewards after completing her choices. This melon was not eaten in vain. At Iron Man's luxurious beachfront villa, Obadiah Stane came directly by helicopter, just to create a vacuum period that Tony Stark didn't know about yet. Sure enough, Tony Stark had just come out of the underground laboratory, sweating all over. When he opened a can of beverage and was about to drink it, the phone suddenly rang. Tony Stark picked it up and saw that it was the female assistant Virginia Potts who called. Tony Stark took it very seriously. He knew that today was Virginia Potts' day as an agent. "Boss, you have to be careful of Obadiah Stane." On the other end of the phone, Virginia Potts was about to report all of the secrets she had discovered about Obadiah Stane. Tony Stark suddenly couldn't move. The big bald Obadiah Stane was seen holding a high-tech product in his hand. He used this thing to make the Ten Rings gang leader lose his combat effectiveness on the spot. This time, Obadiah Stane took it out again to deal with Tony Stark, and it was simply invincible. It was too useful. "Look at this, Tony. This was developed by you. How could you be so careless?" Obadiah Stane took off his earplugs and said arrogantly, "Tony, you are a goose that lays golden eggs. I was reluctant to kill you. However, you are too talented. If I don't kill you, the entire Stark Industries will be yours sooner or later." "But I didn't expect that the Ten Rings, that bunch of good-for-nothings, caught you but couldn't kill you. I'm really surprised that you can come back alive. You also developed the Iron Man armor. You are simply a genius in military weapons, Tony." "Do you know why I didn't kill you later?" "Because as soon as you came back, you held a press conference and planned to transform Stark Industries. We are a top military factory. Are you planning to transform our company into selling diapers?" "This is ridiculous, Tony. There is no need for me to kill you anymore. Stark Industries doesn't need a genius like you. You are no longer a threat to my complete control over Stark Industries." Obadiah Stane was very angry as he spoke. "But why do you have to go against me? You let Virginia Potts, an innocent woman, come to steal my information. You force me to take action against you again, Tony." "Virginia Potts, a beautiful woman, died on the street because of you." As a big villain, Obadiah Stane had enough to say. He came here today not only to completely break up with Tony Stark, but most importantly, he came to take the arc reactor on Tony Stark's chest. Tony Stark is a genius. He was able to create the arc reactor in the cave, so that he could use energy continuously. However, Obadiah Stane's engineers could not even imitate it in the most advanced technology laboratory in the world. As a last resort, Obadiah Stane could only use third-rate means to directly dig out the arc reactor from Tony Stark. Tony Stark felt very uncomfortable at the moment, but he couldn't move at all. He could only watch Obadiah Stane take away Tony Stark's arc reactor. In the original drama, Obadiah Stane never killed anyone, but he made an exception here. Tony Stark must die. If he doesn't die, Obadiah Stane's first-generation Iron Man armor will never be the best. So in the original drama, the director deliberately let Obadiah Stane not kill anyone with his own hands and spared Tony Stark's life. On this side, Obadiah Stane was more ruthless. After taking away Tony Stark's arc reactor, he immediately took out a pistol and fired 2 shots at Tony Stark's heart. It seems that Tony Stark must die. Obadiah Stane shot Tony Stark's corpse in the head again, and finally left in style. This is like a big villain. When doing things, you should cut the grass and root it out. Please support the new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 319, sharing an illusion in Marvel. The development of the situation was unexpected. Tony Stark would never have dreamed that he would die from a close-range gunshot, and 3 shots were fired in a row. The first generation of Iron Man was gone before the Avengers were even created. A shocking blood mark was left on the floor. Obadiah Stane was very satisfied. He put away his pistol, took the box containing the arc reactor of Iron Man Tony Stark, and left quickly. In theory, if the matter just now had not taken a turn for the better, I am afraid Tony Stark would really die. Fortunately, Tony Stark still had God. Hermione, do I have to go back to the past to be resurrected? Tony Stark was surprised to find that his soul could communicate with the beautiful goddess Miss Hermione, who suddenly appeared. Hermione said, "No, I'm not at the scene. You are dead, and you can only go back to the past to save you. But I was by your side just now, so naturally it doesn't need to be so troublesome." Hermione's eyeballs were blood red at this moment, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan kept changing. That's right. The peerless beauty Miss Hermione just used the Sharingan contact lens. When Obadiah Stane shot Tony Stark, the villain himself didn't know that he had been hit by the Sharingan illusion. Tony Stark was also in the illusion, and he thought he was killed. However, when the mist of the illusion began to dissipate, the truth was completely revealed. Tony Stark was surprised to see that there were 3 bullet holes on the floor not far from his body, while he was lying on the sofa in good condition. What's going on? Tony Stark had no concept of illusion, and he was completely confused. Hermione exaggeratedly said, "This is the power of God. Now, you need a new arc reactor." According to the setting in the original movie, after the arc reactor on Tony Stark's chest was forcibly taken away by Obadiah Stane, he could only crawl to find the previous arc reactor, and it happened that the arc reactor was underpowered. This setting just illustrates the flaws in Tony Stark's character. He didn't leave a way out for himself. If Miss Hermione were to be Iron Man, she would definitely not do this. She would prepare several arc reactors like socks and long johns. If this one is torn, I still have another one. Last time, Hermione asked Tony Stark where the arc reactor in the cave was. Now it can be used. Hermione cast a magic and the old arc reactor in the cabinet flew out. However, what surprised Hermione was that Tony Stark here suddenly said, "God, don't use that. Last time you asked me about the old arc reactor, I roughly guessed that I would definitely use it in the future." Tony Stark opened the cabinet behind the sofa with trembling hands, and saw that there were actually 2 brand new arc reactors in it. "So, I prepared several more arc reactors in advance," Hermione exclaimed. "You are amazing." Indeed, in the original movie, Iron Man had almost no one to help him. He had to do everything by himself, so it was inevitable that there would be omissions, and the arc reactor was not so easy to make. However, the Iron Man Tony Stark here was different. From the moment the goddess Hermione appeared, almost every step he took was influenced by God. So in the dead of night, Tony Stark would naturally lie down and think about what God's purpose was. God was unwilling to do it himself, so God chose an agent. And Iron Man Tony Stark was the first. Then Tony Stark thought of every word Hermione said, including the arc reactor. He understood that God had the ability to predict the future, and her reminder at that time must have a deep meaning. Tony Stark was not God, and he didn't know what would happen in the future, but he knew that what God said must be correct. So, in addition to the old arc reactor, he secretly made 2 new ones and hid them. Hermione cast a spell, and the new arc reactor flew directly to Tony Stark's chest and installed itself automatically. With this, Tony Stark's body seemed to be electrified, and instantly filled with strength. He stood up, his face still a little pale, looking at the 3 bullet holes on the floor. He said after surviving the disaster, "Fortunately, God, you were here just now, otherwise I would have been dead by now," which is something I could never have expected. Hermione said, "Okay. The villain Obadiah Stane has completely surfaced. He stole your arc reactor. I'm afraid he has gone back to drive the Iron Man first generation machine that he stole your design drawings from to prepare for a big fight. As God's agent and superhero, it's time for you to defeat evil and save the world." At this moment, Hermione seemed like a real God. Tony Stark nodded, immediately returned to the laboratory, began to wear the Iron Man armor, and attacked Obadiah Stane. At this time, the female assistant Virginia Potts had just called her boss, and was attacked by Obadiah Stane, causing the phone to be destroyed. Virginia Potts was with the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. She was very worried about the safety of her boss Tony Stark, so she immediately called Colonel James Rhodes, who was one of the few friends Tony Stark could trust. Colonel James Rhodes received the call and immediately understood the seriousness of the matter. He drove quickly, but he was still a step too late. The villain Obadiah Stane had already left in a helicopter. Oh no! Colonel James Rhodes rushed in immediately, and Miss Hermione immediately became invisible. She didn't want too many people to know her for the time being. Since she wanted to be a god in Marvel, she naturally had to have the most basic sense of mystery. Colonel James Rhodes also noticed the shell casings and bullet holes on the floor. There was actually a shooting here. Tony, are you okay? Tony, did you hear me? Answer me quickly. Tony in the basement had just put on the Iron Man armor, and he could only answer, I'm down there. Great, old friend, I thought you were dead. Colonel James Rhodes's worried heart was finally put down. Colonel James Rhodes came downstairs and was stunned when he saw Tony Stark's wine-red Iron Man armor. My God, what is this? Tony Stark said briefly, this is my latest war machine. I'm going to defend peace now. I'll tell you more about it when I come back. After that, Tony Stark activated the Iron Man armor and flew straight into the sky. Just like in the original movie, this time Tony Stark was full of anger and didn't take the normal path at all. He broke through the ceiling and flew into the night sky. Colonel James Rhodes was undoubtedly stunned again. Tonight really opened his eyes. This is so cool. He looked back at Tony Stark's laboratory and saw an Iron Man 2 armor. Colonel James Rhodes was fascinated. He muttered to himself, next time, I want to wear this too. Chapter 320. The First Ironmonger vs. Iron Man. The war is about to start. Miss Hermione rushed over quickly in the mood of watching the fun. Before leaving, she took a look at Colonel James Rhodes, who would also become a superhero in Marvel, but his fame was not that great. If there are system option tasks in the future, Hermione will communicate with him, but there is no need now. Stark Industries, District 16. There is a huge arc reactor here, which looks like a huge oval glass cover on the outside, and blue lightning inside, which looks full of technology. At the beginning, in the eyes of the villain Obadiah Stane, this thing was a gimmick developed by Tony Stark to increase the company's popularity. In Obadiah Stane's view, the technology of the arc reactor is too difficult and it is impossible to be commercialized within 100 years. But I never expected that Tony Stark, the genius, would actually create a small arc reactor in a broken cave, and the powerful power can completely drive steel machines to fight. This is simply the technological war of the future, and it was developed in advance by Tony Stark. But it doesn't matter. As a villain, Obadiah Stane's best ability is to easily steal the success of others' labor. So what if it was researched by Tony Stark? He was still shot dead by himself. Then the arc reactor and the prototype of the steel machine are all in his hands. He will dominate the future modern war. The S.H.I.E.L.D. agents have not realized the seriousness of the problem at all. Agent Phil Coulson brought his female assistant Virginia Potts and only 5 to 6 agents with pistols to the villain's lair. It's here. My war card should still work. Although Virginia Potts was a little nervous, she knew very well that if Obadiah Stane could be taken down, then Stark Industries would be completely controlled by her boss Tony Stark. This is a huge historical moment. However, when Virginia Potts took out her work card and was about to swipe the card to open the door, she was prompted, forbidden. It seems that Virginia Potts's work card has been revoked of access here. Let us do it. Phil Coulson asked one of his agents to take action. Virginia Potts was very stupid and naive. If you want to use a virus to invade, I'm afraid it won't work. The system here is very. What are you doing? Virginia Potts thought they would use a gentle hacker to crack the door lock. However, the agent directly placed a time bomb on the door. Phil Coulson said in a normal tone, Madam, I think you should step back a little. About this far. Bang. This small time bomb is specially used to blast the door lock. It is a precise blast that will not cause large-scale damage. The door lock was directly blown into a hole, while the rest of the door was intact. Even so, Virginia Potts was still shocked. She looked a little pale and said, "You are really crazy." Phil Coulson still said in a calm tone, "The real crazy ones are the criminals we want to catch." After saying that, he shook his head, and his agents immediately picked up their guns and started to open the door and rush in. The explosion just now successfully alerted the enemy, and Obadiah Stane, who hurried back, was startled. He knew that a desperate fight was about to begin. If he couldn't get through this level, his life would be over. He quickly took the arc reactor from Tony Stark and installed it on his prototype steel machine. This mecha was very huge, so he was as stingy as Tony Stark. He improved the design drawings, and his robot armor was even more huge and terrifying, and the weapons equipped were even more fierce. He must be in there. Virginia Potts was very nervous. A woman's sixth sense told her that this place must be unsafe, but she couldn't retreat. Fortunately, the SHIELD agents around her were very professional, which made Virginia Potts feel a little safe. As for Goddess Hermione, she arrived one step earlier than Iron Man Tony Stark. She was happy to watch such an exciting and wonderful movie ending. Of course, her system options will pop up immediately. Option 1. One step ahead of Tony Stark. Take action to eliminate the first Ironmonger Obadiah Stane. Complete the task and get a lollipop as reward. Option 2. Sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Don't take action. The winner is the king. The loser is the bandit. Complete the task and get a chewing gum as reward. Option 3. Take action, but not completely. Appropriately change and adjust some details. Complete the task and get a basic attribute plus 1 reward. This task is not much different from not appearing, except for the villain's war mecha, which has a very domineering name, the first Ironmonger. There is nothing exciting about it. Miss Hermione took action and eliminated the first Ironmonger, which was easy, but the reward is too little. 1 lollipop. It's more than that to send away a beggar. Option 2. Sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. This does have some deep meaning in it. If we look at the problem from Tony Stark's perspective, the first Ironmonger Obadiah Stane is indeed an out-and-out villain, extremely hateful. But what if we focus on Obadiah Stane? It seems that he killed Tony Stark, replaced Iron Man, and became the first Ironmonger. If he wins, he is the king, and if he loses, he is the enemy. History books are written by the winners, unless they go through several dynasties, but at that time, who can really know the inside story? Hermione was too lazy to think so much, and the reward for option 2 was too small. Although she could complete the task without doing anything, the reward of a piece of chewing gum was meaningless. Let's go with option 3. Took action, but not completely. It's a bit interesting. Soon, Hermione understood the real meaning of this sentence. I saw that the first Ironmonger had been successfully activated, and Obadiah Stane's murderous intention was aroused. In the original drama and movie, there were almost no scenes of Obadiah Stane killing people by himself, and they were all killed by his men. But here, perhaps because the goddess Hermione traveled through time and accelerated the plot, Obadiah Stane's personality and temper changed a lot. The first-generation Ironmonger was in actual combat for the first time, and Obadiah Stane must sacrifice the lives of the ants in front of him. Boom. The first-generation Ironmonger attacked the steel pillar with 1 blow, which immediately caused a small-scale collapse, and then there was a burst of bullets directly attacking Virginia Potts and Agent Phil Coulson. It seemed that casualties were inevitable. Miss Hermione took action, but she did not kill the first-generation Ironmonger directly because the reward was too little. She used magic to successfully save Virginia Potts and Agent Phil Coulson, and these two still have roles in future Marvel stories. As for those passers-by agents, I'm sorry, get your lunch in advance. The first Ironmonger rushed out. Under the light, the terrifying steel and huge body stunned Virginia Potts and Agent Phil Coulson. They had never seen such a terrifying existence in their lives. The bullets could not even cause any damage to the first Ironmonger, Agent Phil Coulson and Virginia Potts thought they were going to die, but they did not expect that they could survive. It was simply a miracle. They did not know that God had taken action behind the scenes, but he did not take full action. Please support the new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 321 Hermione the Witch gains Magneto's power. While watching the play, Miss Hermione certainly did not forget to control the time. If she let the time exceed, it would not be fun. Sometimes I think that it is quite sad for the villain Obadiah Stane to meet her. Obviously, the villain's operation is much better than that in the original play and movie, but it is a pity that he met the goddess Hermione, and all the struggles and efforts were in vain. Unless God sits back and lets the good guys die tragically, otherwise, the villain's ending is doomed. Boom. Virginia Potts and Agent Phil Coulson did not know that there was a God protecting them in secret. Just when they were in despair, Iron Man Tony Stark made a brilliant appearance. Under the terrifying artillery fire and steel beasts, he fell from the sky like a savior. Boom. Tony Stark came down with a hand cannon and blasted the first-generation Ironmonger away. Are we saved? Phil Coulson still didn't dare to believe it. Take Potts and leave here. Iron Man spoke. The Iron Man armor had a loudspeaker system, so the voice was very loud. It's really Tony. He's Tony. Virginia Potts was very moved. It turned out that the steel that her boss had been tinkering with in the basement of the seaside villa was actually such a thing. It was so cool. It's incredible. Agent Phil Coulson also exclaimed. It was like a sci-fi world in front of him, with two Iron Men fighting. But we have to leave here as soon as possible and don't distract Mr. Tony Stark. Agent Phil Coulson took Virginia Potts away quickly and safely. Iron Man and the first Ironmonger continued to fight. The first Ironmonger was even more incredible. This is impossible. You are Tony Stark, but you have been killed by me. How can a dead person be resurrected? And Obadiah Stane fired 3 shots at Tony Stark with his own hands. That was no joke. Of course, the bullets pierced the floor and blood splattered. Obadiah Stane saw it with his own eyes. Tony Stark laughed out loud. God will bless justice, but you have committed many evil deeds, and God will not help you. Obadiah Stane seemed to have heard the most ridiculous joke in history. Tony, don't tell me that you are a good person. When you were young, you had so many romantic stories that you couldn't even finish filming 3 movies. Tony Stark didn't blush. While fighting with the first Ironmonger, he said, I'm not a good person, but I know how to turn back. My goal now is world peace and protecting all mankind. And you, for money, can sell anything, including your conscience. Don't talk about it in a high-sounding way. The winner is the king. Tony, today I will use the steel beast you designed to defeat you squarely, and I will definitely be the one who laughs last. Obadiah Stane directly brought out heavy weapons and attacked Iron Man. Bang, bang, bang. Even the wall was beaten into tofu dregs, which shows how fierce the weapons equipped by the first Ironmonger were. Tony, I'm not as stingy as you. Iron Man is used to start wars. Your design is not suitable at all. Mine is better. Obadiah Stane was very proud. Under his fierce artillery fire, Iron Man was beaten and could only flee. There was no other way. Iron Man was designed to be a superhero. If a superhero carries a Gatling gun and a bazooka every day, the barrel and the cannon would really scare ordinary people. So Tony Stark's Iron Man shooting must consider giving people a sense of security. But Obadiah Stane doesn't need to. His Iron Man is used to start wars, and the more terrifying the weapon, the better. Boom. A shell is about to hit Tony Stark. Even if Tony Stark here uses the latest arc reactor, it is difficult to guarantee that he will not be injured after the shell hits. At this time, the system options popped up in front of Miss Hermione. Option 1. Help Tony Stark. Use magic to transfer the warhead. Complete the task to reward 1 set of X-Men Magneto's ability. Option 2. Help Obadiah Stane. I have long been fed up with justice. The winner is the king. Obadiah Stane won. He is justice. Complete the task to reward 1 cup of pearl milk tea. Option 3. Dance on the spot. I am the little swan dancing in the Steel Beast War. Complete the task to reward 1 pair of dancing shoes. Speechless and shocked. Speechless that at this time, there is still a dancing task. This is beyond funny. It is simply a brain-dead option. Shocking is one. Magneto's ability? What a joke. Magneto comes from X-Men, and this is Marvel. But think about it carefully. Miss Hermione also got game equipment, Sharingan, and Zyuxian ring. It seems that it is understandable to get Magneto's ability. It's exciting. Although I don't know why Magneto's ability is one set. What does one pair mean? Could it be that it is also a kind of equipment like the Sharingan contact lenses, which can be used to use superpowers after wearing it? Although it has changed from the mutant's own ability to a magical equipment, it is still okay. It is better to have more skills than less. Miss Hermione likes it. But even now, using magic to change the trajectory of the warhead is something Hermione has never done. If she uses the Tathagata palm, she has the confidence to do so. Because Miss Hermione's Tathagata palm comes from the peerless magic in the movie Kung Fu. A house can be slapped through with one palm. Similarly, a cannonball is still very easy. Of course, if it is replaced with a nuclear bomb, it must be carefully considered. It is safer to run away directly. Magic, pure magic, must have some flaws. Miss Hermione wears the Sharingan contact lenses and uses exaggerated pupils to lock the trajectory of the cannonball. Ordinary naked eyes may not be able to capture objects moving at high speed, but the Sharingan can. Then, Hermione put on the mask of pain. Again, at that moment, Hermione's body was filled with magical power. In the Canyon of Kings, a general mage can kill people in seconds with 3 large pieces of equipment. Hermione only had one big piece of pain mask, and the other 2 big pieces were defensive equipment, one for physical resistance and the other for magic resistance. But it didn't matter. Hermione herself also had plenty of magic power. As she picked up the wand of wind sorrow, the next moment, the surging magic power surged out directly, and the warhead seemed to hit the cotton, and then was forcibly redirected and directly attacked the first-generation Ironmonger himself. Boom! The sparks from the explosion stunned Obadiah Stane and Tony Stark at the same time. What's going on? It was too weird. The warhead would turn and attack himself. Fortunately, the first-generation Ironmonger had thick skin and flesh, and had not been blown to death, but his head was already buzzing. Obadiah Stane didn't believe that God would stand on Tony Stark's side. He fired 2 missiles again, and the fire from the missiles directly illuminated the industrial area that was in a mess because of the battle. At this time, Miss Hermione's system prompted, "Congratulations on completing Option 1 task. Reward 1 pair of X-Men Magneto's ability." Fortunately, it is not disposable. Hermione excitedly took it out of the system and saw that it turned out to be a pair of silver bracelets. The shape was full of technology. It could be freely changed by the size of the wrist. At the same time, it could also float in the air. It seemed that the surrounding magnetic force was all controlled by the silver bracelets. This was magical. Although as a god, Miss Hermione should not interfere too much in the war between Muggles, but she especially wanted to test the power of this pair of silver bracelets. Chapter 322 Magneto's Bracelet. Raise your hand to control everything. After Miss Hermione traveled through Marvel, she called herself a god. She could become invisible, change time and go back to the past, fly on a broomstick, and travel through time instantly with a door key, and so on. Miss Hermione has so many abilities that it is simply dazzling. But as a god, no matter how many abilities she has, it is also a normal performance. But today, she was not as excited as she got the Nano Iron Man armor as she got Magneto's silver bracelet. Because Magneto's ability is more like magic, Miss Hermione has a preconceived idea. Before she traveled through Marvel, she had studied at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry for many years. From ignorance to greatness, Miss Hermione has accumulated a lot. She knows magic like the back of her hand. When Magneto's silver bracelet was worn on her wrist, it seemed to have life and automatically changed to the size of Miss Hermione's wrist. The next moment, the surging magnetic force instantly passed through this silver bracelet and connected everything in the world with Hermione. This feeling is so wonderful. Miss Hermione raised her hand, and the silver bracelet swung on her snow-white wrist. Her white and tender fingers were as beautiful as the most beautiful in the world. The terrifying magnetic force controlled all metals. Although there is magic that can control objects, the magic from Hogwarts is still too gentle after all. Unlike Magneto in X-Men, the magnetic force is simply terrifying. Ships, bridges, and even at the strongest, he can control the metal in an area for his own use. Too terrifying, like a god. This is the absolute control that magic cannot have. When Hermione raised her hand, the 2 shells fired by the first-generation Ironmonger were directly stopped in midair, and the surrounding metals made a roar of surrender. The metals seemed to have life. When the goddess Hermione wore the silver bracelet, she was the emperor of all metals. With absolute magnetic control, she is the king of all metals. In this industrial area, reinforced concrete is undoubtedly the most common thing, especially now most of the buildings are steel-framed houses. This environment is simply a perfect place for Miss Hermione. Obadiah Stane was stunned. He has been studying arms for a long time. At his age, he never believed that there is a god in this world. But Tony Stark, after escaping from the cave, has been talking about gods. Today, Obadiah Stane's deadline has come, and he finally felt an unprecedented mysterious power. Those 2 missiles were actually suspended in the air. Can you believe it? The metal around him, including the first-generation Ironmonger on his body, was making a wailing sound of surrender. This is simply too terrifying. It's too hard to understand. There is no way. Although the Marvel Universe and the X-Men universe are connected in the comics, they don't know each other in terms of film copyright. Otherwise, Obadiah Stane might know the mutant Magneto. But in this movie, he didn't know it at all. He could only explain the scene in front of him as a miracle. It seemed that God wanted to kill him. In an instant, the first Ironmonger didn't want to fight anymore. He wanted to surrender. This feeling is like playing ranked games. The system wants to mess with you. You have to lose 10 times in a row. No matter what hero you choose or how you operate, you can't save your fate of being pushed to the crystal. At this moment, Obadiah Stane is in this desperate mood. Tony Stark is also surprised. Oh my god. My Patronus is so awesome. What kind of power is this? Just now, it changed the trajectory of the missile, and now it actually made the missile float in the air like a feather. The surrounding steel made a wailing sound. This is too shocking. I don't accept it. Despair hit the bottom and rebounded. Obadiah Stane has fallen into madness. As the biggest villain in this movie, he must play his charm as a villain. The charm of a villain who will never look back. He is not the Joker villain in the Batman series, who needs a sad childhood. Obadiah Stane does not need it. This is Marvel, and there is no need for such a delicate inner self, nor does it need to recall any painful past. Obadiah Stane is the villain, and he must fight the protagonist. Why should God let me die? I must die. I don't accept it. I want to change my fate. At this moment, Obadiah Stane's charm as a villain has reached its best. He launched the greatest firepower, and in the magnetic field controlled by the goddess Hermione, the first-generation Ironmonger burst out with terrifying power. After all, Hermione is not the real Magneto, and her bracelet is just an auxiliary tool. And Hermione didn't intend to kill Obadiah Stane at all. She was just trying her hand, and the big villain didn't know it at all. He fought desperately, almost bleeding from all 7 orifices, and the first-generation Ironmonger struggled with sparks all over his body. In fact, the goddess Hermione only used less than half of Magneto's magnetic force. If she really wanted to kill Obadiah Stane, she only needed to use her delicate hands to pinch him, and the entire huge iron giant of the first Ironmonger would be directly pinched into an iron lump. Magneto's ability is so amazing. Hermione did not get the power of Magneto at his peak. However, Obadiah Stane has entered his passionate time to resist the injustice of fate. He kept struggling, and under the terrifying magnetic force, the first Ironmonger's entire body armor began to face collapse, but he didn't care. He ran madly. As Iron Man, Tony Stark would not retreat even with the help of God. At this moment, he also ran. God was not too partial, and the magnetic force of the whole venue was the same, but Iron Man was small and not as bulky as the first Ironmonger, so the pressure of being controlled by the magnetic force was relatively small. Boom, boom. In the fierce and tragic battle, One of the iron arms of the first Ironmonger was directly broken, but he achieved his goal. In the original movie, Iron Man, in desperation, used the huge arc reactor in Area 16 to blast and blow up the first Ironmonger and Obadiah Stane. It was still operated by his female assistant Virginia Potts. And here, the first Ironmonger Obadiah Stane is the same. He is very desperate, arranged by God, but he does not accept his fate. He has no way to deal with the invisible and intangible, God. He can only die with Tony Stark. His first Ironmonger has the last shell left. He seems to rush over to fight Iron Man for the last life and death. In fact, he attacked Iron Man Tony Stark next to the huge arc reactor. The battle just now has made this place very dilapidated. At this moment, he only needs one shell to hug Iron Man Tony Stark and die together. He doesn't believe that the omnipotent God can continue to save Tony Stark. After Iron Man Tony Stark discovered Obadiah Stane's plot, it was too late. The two fell to the arc reactor below. At the same time, Obadiah Stane detonated the last shell on the original Ironmonger. With blood on his face, he screamed miserably, "Tony, let's go to hell together." Boom. The terrifying flames detonated the arc reactor below at the same time. The terrifying arc reactor exploded, and the terrifying energy directly formed a huge beam of light, rushing straight into the dark night sky from below. At that moment, half of the city was directly illuminated by this beam of light. It's so scary. Please support my new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 323, Hogwarts, False Memory. The air was filled with the burning after the explosion of the arc reactor. Even if ordinary people simply took a breath, their entire lungs would be burned. Fortunately, there were no unlucky passers-by in this area at this time. As the villain, Obadiah Stane's final swan song was to die with Tony Stark, but the result was not what he wanted. Because God is biased, she can watch the villain Obadiah Stane, the bald head, turn into ashes in an instant without expression or even emotion, but she will not watch Tony Stark Iron Man die like this. Hermione took action. She was very fast. Using the power of Magneto's bracelet, the powerful magnetic control can make Miss Hermione like an electromagnetic cannon. The control of the magnetic field is close to omnipotence. With a wave of her hand, the surrounding metal obeyed Miss Hermione's control and quickly condensed into a huge metal shield to block the terrifying energy wave formed after the explosion of the arc reactor. At the same time, when Hermione reached out and touched Tony Stark, the door key opened instantly. In the Marvel world, Miss Hermione left a door key in Tony Stark's beach house. When the magic power of the door key opened, Tony Stark felt the magical experience of instant space travel for the first time. The previous second, he was still fighting with Obadiah Stane's first-generation Ironmonger, the battle between the two Iron Men, but the next second, he magically returned home. Am I dreaming? Is there such a real dream? Miss Hermione smiled but said nothing. Tony Stark soon realized that all of this was not a dream, because the Iron Man armor he was wearing at the moment was full of bullet holes and scars after the battle. If it weren't for the good material of the Iron Man armor, I'm afraid Tony Stark wouldn't be able to stand here at this moment. God, you are too powerful. Your power is beyond my description. If Tony Stark in the original play has always been proud and conceited, after all, before he became Iron Man, the military weapons he developed by himself could be sold for orders of hundreds of millions of dollars. After becoming Iron Man, he was naturally more proud. In Marvel, the Iron Man armor he designed, which can be controlled by mortals and can be on par with gods, is enough to make him proud for a lifetime. At this moment, the God, who truly possesses supernatural powers, appeared beside Tony Stark, and time and again, the power of God deeply impressed him. In front of God, Tony Stark finally understood the difference between gods and mortals. I'm leaving, and you can handle the rest yourself, Miss Hermione said, and left without much nostalgia. The ending of Iron Man 1 has also ended, and there is no great significance for Miss Hermione to stay here. Tony Stark nodded, and he did not take the initiative to keep her. God has helped him too much. Besides, God should be mysterious. If he stayed to chat and play mahjong with him, It would be too ungodlike. Secretary Virginia Potts and Agent Phil Coulson, after the explosion of the arc reactor, did not even find Tony Stark's body. For this, Virginia Potts was sad for a long time and even cried. Later, when Tony Stark changed out of his tattered Iron Man armor and even took a shower and put on his home clothes, Virginia Potts was shocked to find that her boss was not dead and had time to take a shower and drink a drink on the sofa. "Boss, you?" Tony Stark smiled and said, "Are you happy to see me? How could you do that? You know how worried I was. I thought you were dead, with no complete body." Tony Stark stood up, handed Virginia Potts a drink and said, "Why do you say such depressing words? I'm alive and well now." "Boss, how did you do it?" Virginia Potts was very puzzled. The Stark Industrial Zone was very far away from here. Tony Stark did not explain in detail because he did not understand the power of God very well. "Didn't I say that I was taken care of by God?" In the original play, Tony Stark had no backing. He was the patron saint of ordinary people. He had to become stronger. On this side, he had goddess Hermione, so he could be lazy for a while. The feeling of being protected by God was naturally wonderful, although it was inevitable to get injured during the battle. But it was much better than losing your life at any time. Miss Hermione, after seeing the ending of Iron Man 1 in the Marvel world, traveled back to Hogwarts. Seeing that there was still time on the time converter, Hermione was not in a hurry to return to the Great Hall. She was in the Dark Forest, took out Magneto's silver bracelet, put it on, and tried to see if the energy of Magneto's bracelet in different worlds was different. Fortunately, it did not weaken. Hermione's palm was close to the ground. Through Magneto's bracelet, she could even absorb the iron ore underground and condense it into an iron ball. Very awesome. Hermione put on the invisibility cloak and started walking back to Hogwarts. The feeling at this moment was very wonderful, just like secretly eating spicy strips and playing with mobile phones under the table during class. It was also like skipping class to go to the cinema to watch a movie, and then coming back to continue class after watching it. Because time still happened in the past. It was a very strange scene. The Goblet of Fire had not yet been held in the Hogwarts Great Hall to select the True Wizard Tournament. If Miss Hermione was not invisible, then when she appeared here, many male classmates would definitely greet her. But now, she should be with Harry and Ron. When the time of the time converter ends, those who have seen Hermione will have a wrong memory in their brains. For example, seeing two Hermiones on the same day seems to have happened before. Of course, the brain will not miss anything actively. Such a memory of interlaced time and space will make some people fall into self-doubt. So for the sake of others, Miss Hermione usually wears an invisible cloak when she moves. In this way, others can't see her, and naturally they won't have a wrong memory. Hermione went straight to the place where she used the time converter to return to the past, and then returned the time of the time converter to normal. In an instant, the surroundings became lively. Everyone didn't know that in less than 1 second, the witch Hermione Granger traveled to the Marvel world to become a god and a savior again. And this time she also got a treasure like the Magneto bracelet. Everyone around was talking about how Harry Potter was chosen because he was not told enough. Miss Hermione also felt very strange, as if a lot of things had happened, but it returned to the starting point, and everyone was still stuck in the past. However, Miss Hermione had a strong ability to adapt, and she did not think too much about these things. In that special room, the chosen warriors, including the 3 deans of the Magic Academy, the director of the Ministry of Magic's executive department, Professor Snape, etc. were all there. Of course, this year, because of the appearance of Professor Mad-Eye Moody, Professor Snape, like Malfoy, did not have many roles. Chapter 324 I Am Iron Man. To Miss Hermione's surprise, she just found a place to sit down and accidentally picked up something. 2 gold coins, not much. If there is no time and space gate, Miss Hermione is still a little worried and dare not pick it up in time, because she might travel to another world in an instant. The process of crossing is of course not so scary. The scary thing is that she suddenly disappeared, which is difficult to explain. Then the rhythm of life in Hogwarts will be directly disrupted in the future, and Miss Hermione can only be the god who is invisible in Hogwarts. From then on, there is no more beautiful lady in Hogwarts who is loved by everyone. When Hermione, Lin Qingyun, was still an ordinary beautiful girl, it was already a lucky privilege that surpassed ordinary people by 10%. Unexpectedly, now that Hermione has become a big boss in both worlds, the setting of picking up money casually has not changed. Can this be regarded as another explanation for keeping the original intention? Inside the house, Headmaster Dumbledore looked at the director and said, "You decide, Barty." Poor old Barty. He began to face the choice of offending people again. Barty Crouch, the director of the Ministry of Magic's Enforcement Department, was really in a difficult situation. In the past Triwizard Tournament, such an accident would never happen. He hesitated again and again, turned around, and did not look at the murderous eyes of the two principals of Durmstrang School of Magic and Buch's Baton School of Magic, and said firmly, "The rules cannot be changed." The director was an old stubborn man, which was already the case when he said that wizard students under the age of 17 could not sign up to participate. However, his adherence to principles encountered Harry Potter, who was dedicated to breaking the rules. Barty Crouch still adhered to the rules in the face of emergencies. Even if it was wrong, this seemed a bit ridiculous. If Barty Crouch had been more flexible in thinking and behavior, Harry Potter's name would appear in the Goblet of Fire, which could be regarded as an accident. It would be better not to let Harry participate. After all, the decision-making power was in the hands of these old men and women. But Barty Crouch insisted on following the rules, which was very dramatic. The choice of the Goblet of Fire must be followed and cannot be changed. Mr. Potter has no choice. From tonight, he will become a Triwizard champion. Barty Crouch also emphasized this part of his speech. The two principals of other magic schools who were about to speak up to stop him were speechless, because if Harry Potter could participate, it would be very unfair. There should be only one person participating from each of the three magic schools, but the current decision will allow Hogwarts to have two players. Just because Hogwarts is the organizer of the Triwizard Tournament, it can't have such a big unfair privilege. But Barty Crouch, director of the Enforcement Department of the Ministry of Magic, said, "Adhere to the rules." Harry Potter's name was chosen by the Goblet of Fire. There is no doubt about it. Even if it is very unfair, the other two principals can only sulk and have no other choice. Harry is of course innocent. Miss Hermione did not give him a clear explanation in advance, which made Harry Potter very passive as in the original play. At this moment, his fate was controlled by several big figures in the wizarding world in front of him. He didn't even have the opportunity to interrupt. He could only awkwardly use his fingers to unconsciously touch the parchment with his name. Of course, the parchment was no longer smoking at this moment. This night was destined to be a time when many people could not fall asleep. The two principals of Durmstrang School of Magic and Buch's Baton School of Magic were furious. They even suspected that Dumbledore and Barty Crouch had colluded and deliberately staged such a scene. The purpose was to give Hogwarts one more competitor to compete in the Triwizard Tournament, but there was no evidence, and they couldn't say anything. In the end, they could only vent their anger on the students of their own school, asking them to train harder and take it more seriously. Even if Hogwarts had two warriors, they had to get the trophy. Miss Hermione had just returned to the dormitory. She was not Harry Potter's girlfriend, so there was no need to wait for him to come out. Harry was called over and lectured for a long time. Ron misunderstood Harry, so he was not in the mood to wait and left earlier than Miss Hermione. He was sulking and didn't want Miss Hermione to see his embarrassment. In the original movie, due to limited space, only Harry Potter's inner monologue could be retained. Ron was worse. His anger and depression were usually glossed over. No appearance. After all, he is not Harry Potter, and there are not many interesting things about him. There is no way to be humble as a supporting role. Ordinary people will only be worse than supporting roles. Of course, everyone belongs to themselves, and there is no need to revolve around others in everything. You can also be the protagonist of your own little life. Just after Hermione fell asleep, the system option task was to pop up to disturb her sweet dreams. Option 1. Continue to sleep, turn a deaf ear to the outside world, and complete the task to reward 1 pound of chili powder. Option 2. Travel through Marvel and help Tony Stark make a small decision. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +2. Option 3. Go and see what Harry Potter is doing. Complete the task to reward 1 small cotton jacket. What a joke. I've already gone to bed. How dare you ask me to work overtime? No matter what you say, you can't stop me from sleeping. Hermione wants to sleep, even if the reward is only a pound of chili powder. But a few minutes later, Hermione, who had been awakened by the sudden pop-up task, tossed and turned and couldn't sleep. Forget it. Girls who say one thing and mean another are more cute. Hermione put on her clothes, used the door key, and teleported to the Marvel world in 2 stages. It's already broad daylight here, because yesterday Tony Stark's Iron Man and Obadiah Stane's first Ironmonger fought, causing the arc reactor in Stark Industries to explode, illuminating the entire night sky. Today, a press conference must be held to give the public an explanation. Obadiah Stane is dead, so the person who will be the face of Stark Industries now must be Tony Stark, the big boss. With his show-off personality, of course he won't refuse. Backstage, Colonel James Rhodey gave Tony Stark a card with pre-arranged lines on it. Tony Stark only needed to go on stage and read them. Tony Stark complained while reciting the lines, "This sentence needs to be changed. This doesn't suit my personality." Colonel James Rhodey ignored Tony Stark's complaints and directly rejected them, saying, "Come on. This is the most professional explanation. It can ensure that the media and the public will not cause trouble." Tony Stark knew that this was the safest explanation. He said frankly, "But I'm still not used to it." However, at this time, Hermione, who had traveled through time, appeared. She was invisible and suspended in the air. In order to get the basic attribute +2 reward for the option 2 task, Hermione even gave up sleeping. After taking a look at Tony Stark's line card, she used magic to isolate herself from the outside world to ensure that only Tony Stark could hear what she said. "Just follow your own ideas. Don't worry, I'm here." Tony Stark smiled and nodded. 10 minutes later, the grand press conference was held. There were so many reporters from all over the world. After all, today was big news. Tony Stark went on stage under everyone's expectation. He was more handsome than in the original play. He threw away the line card in his hand and said to the microphone, "Yes, in fact, I am the Iron Man you were talking about. New book, please support. Thank you everyone." Chapter 325, A Quarrel in the Hogwarts Boys' Dormitory. Colonel James Rhodes and Tony Stark had originally agreed that today's press conference should be low-key, especially the fact that Tony Stark is Iron Man, and the media should not know about it. The low-key Tony Stark also agreed with this view. However, when he was inspired by the goddess Hermione, the words "I am here" were too heartwarming, and when he saw the huge crowd of reporters below, because Tony Stark's image as a playboy was unpopular in the past, Tony Stark only cared about being romantic and didn't care about these things. But now, he is a superhero chosen by God, God's messenger, and God's spokesperson, so how could he not care about his reputation? At the same time, in addition to being low-key, Tony Stark still likes to be high-profile in his bones. This can be seen from the fact that he sprayed the Iron Man armor with a flashy burgundy color. So, when he threw away the card in his hand and solemnly announced that he was Iron Man, the whole audience was shocked, and everyone felt very incredible. Congratulations on completing the option 2 task. Reward basic attribute +2. Hearing the voice of fulfillment, Miss Hermione was satisfied. She came here just for this +2. If she had +1, she would not be willing to leave her warm bed. Under her secret observation, the story of Iron Man 1 finally ended successfully, if nothing unexpected happens. When Hermione returns to Hogwarts, the next story of the Marvel series may be the next one when she travels through time again. Although the Marvel series is connected in series, the timeline is very confusing. In order to gather so many superheroes together to perform on the same stage, the screenwriters and directors can be said to have taken great pains. Hermione did not say hello to Iron Man. but left the Marvel world and returned to the dark forest outside Hogwarts. The atmosphere here is very scary at night, but Hermione now does not care too much. Strength is the best way to solve all fears. If Hermione is already stronger than ordinary fears, in fact, for those fears, the appearance of Miss Hermione is terrifying. After returning to the dormitory invisibly, Hermione can finally have a good rest. Most of the things in the world have their own troubles and things to do. Hermione finally lay down, but it's not over for Harry Potter. In the boys' dormitory, Ron is still sulking, like a wronged young wife. As the saying goes, Ron and Harry are true love, and Miss Hermione is just an accident. Harry was also wronged in front of many wizards. He was framed to become the 4th player in the Triwizard Tournament. He was not old enough, but the pedantic director of the executive department of the Ministry of Magic, Barty Crouch, refused to stop the loss and time and made mistakes on his own. Harry Potter was a weak person and had no say. He was also collectively misunderstood by the teachers and students of the 3 magic schools of Hogwarts, Durmstrang, and Buxbatons. Harry was really dumb and couldn't say anything. I thought that good brothers Ron and Hermione would wait for him and comfort him when he was most helpless, understand him. In the end, Harry Potter came back alone. It turned out that he thought too much. Miss Hermione is busy being the savior of the Marvel world. She has no time to take care of Harry's little emotions. Of course, if Miss Hermione is not so busy, she will still use her delicate girl's mind to take care of Harry, as a classmate and friend for many years. But she is too busy. Naturally, she can't help Harry. As for Ron, he is not much sadder than Harry. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the first part. Harry Potter and the Millennium Chamber of Secrets in the second part. Harry Potter and the Dementors in Azkaban in the third part. I thought that everyone had established a deep brotherhood together. Harry was going to participate in the Triwizard Tournament, and Ron would not blame him at all. But why did Harry not even tell him? Ron, is this too distant? Or, in Harry's eyes, Ron is just a small follower of the famous wizard Harry Potter. The more I think about it, the sadder I am. This feeling is like, the goddess you like is out of your reach. This feeling is like, you think you are a good brother who has experienced life and death, but in fact, others look down on you. It is easy for people to be optimistic. When they are pessimistic, they are also very easy to be depressed. Although there is no need for Dementors to take action this year, the happiness in people's emotions will be instantly absorbed by depression. Don't advise others to be kind without experiencing their suffering. If you experience others' suffering, you may not be kind. How did you do it? Ron is a funny person after all, and he and Harry are really in love. Even if he feels bad, he can't help but say when he sees Harry Potter coming back dejected, "Forget it, I didn't ask." I think it's okay. You didn't even tell your best friend. Harry was tired. Ron and Hermione didn't wait for him. He was also very disappointed, and just returned to the dormitory at this moment. Ron's cold words really made him feel even more unhappy. Tell you what, you know it very well. Ron also has his own pride. I don't want this to happen, Ron. Understand? Why are you so stupid? Ron felt that Harry had abandoned him, but Harry felt that after 3 or 4 years of friendship, Ron still didn't understand what kind of person he was. He was really disappointed with a friend who didn't understand and trust him. I'm stupid, Ron Weasley, Harry Potter's stupid friend. Hearing Harry mocking him for being stupid, Ron lay down directly. His stomach was full of anger, and rolling his eyes couldn't vent all of Ron's emotions. Yes, Ron was so stupid. When Harry became a champion of the Triwizard Tournament, he didn't even know how Harry signed up. Foolish and naive. Harry was also very angry. If he and Ron were the only 2 people in the dormitory, he really wanted to use his fist as big as a casserole to open Ron's stupid head. Harry was originally too weak to sit on his bed, but now he stood up angrily, walked a few steps to Ron's bed, and explained angrily, I didn't put my name in the Goblet of Fire. I don't want eternal glory. Listen, I don't know what happened tonight. It just happened. Understand? Harry felt that his explanation was clear enough, because he himself didn't know how he was elected. He was not old enough, and he had never thought about participating. Harry returned to his bed, but before he sat down, Ron said directly, "Get lost." Harry was also furious. From a god's perspective, he felt that Ron's words were too much and his actions were very unreasonable. Just like a boyfriend most of the time, he didn't understand why his girlfriend was angry for no reason and would get angry for no reason. People are not saints, and most of the time, complex emotions come so suddenly. In Ron's opinion, the most famous person in Hogwarts almost every year is Harry Potter. Whether it is the Voldemort incident or the Quidditch game, Harry Potter is the most dazzling and famous one. Ron just caught a sentence from Harry's explanation, "I don't want eternal glory." This sentence was too harsh, just like the other two famous quotes, "I'm face blind. I don't know if my wife is pretty, and I've never touched money. I'm not interested in money." Ron's reaction was of course normal. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.